Chapter 375, Thick-Skinned. Chapter 375, Thick-Skinned. An expression of humiliation and fury appeared instantly on Lang Jun Cai's face. He was a respected young master, but someone actually pointed a finger at his nose and demanded him to get lost. How could he possibly bear with that? But still, could he beat Gong Letian? Young Master Gong, this matter has nothing to do with you. Please do not interfere, on account of young Master Liu. He decided that he still had to persist for a moment longer. The young Master Liu he was talking about was the grandson of that alchemist that the Lang clan depended on. He, too, was the descendant of a low-level Earth-grade alchemist, and had equal standing with Gong Letian. The Lang clan was a vassal clan of the Liu clan, and he, Lang Jun Cai, was naturally the lackey of the young master of the Liu clan. Even if Liu Qi Yuan was standing in front of me, I would tell him to get lost too, so who do you think you are? Gong Letian said disdainfully, then waved his hand again and said, if you still don't get lost, you may not be able to leave so easily later on. Lang Jun Cai was defiant, his fists gripped tightly, but ultimately, he still decided to give in and said, fine, I'll leave. Please let those people hanging outside go. Gong Letian could not help but turn to look at Ling Han, and did not make the decision without his input. Ling Han could not help but smile. Although Gong Letian was also a profligate young master, he knew the ways of the world. Otherwise, he would not have needed to ask for Ling Han's input, but simply issue the command. He smiled slightly and said, if you want to take them away, you can. 100 origin crystals each. You. Lang Jun Cai was outraged. 100 origin crystals for each. Why don't you go and commit a burglary then? You can pay if you want to. Ling Han paid no more attention to him, and continued his meal. Hee. Gong Letian could not help but laugh. When his eyes swept over Ling Han, he finally began to take the latter seriously. The kind of person he hated the most was one without any backbone. There were too many people by his side who liked to flatter him and curry his favor. As such, he was naturally very admiring of Ling Han's character. A vein popped on Lang Jun Cai's forehead. He had sent out 40-odd people this time, and if he were to pay the ransom for every single one of them, that would come up to a total of over 4,000 origin crystal. It wasn't that he could not afford it, but this would make his heart ache. It's too much, he said, shaking his head. Is it? Ling Han began counting on his fingers. One person can produce 10+ origin crystals a year, so about 10 years would be enough. Lang Jun Cai almost leaped up in his outrage. There were only 7 people in the spiritual ocean tier here. How could the others, who were in the gushing spring tier, produce origin crystals? Don't bargain with me. If you want to take them, leave the origin crystals behind. If not, get lost. Ling Han gave a flick of his hand. Lang Jun Cai's eyes were spitting fire, but he only thought that Ling Han had gotten Gong Letian's support and that was the reason for his absolute courage now, and the tragic thing was that he indeed did not dare trifle with Gong Letian. His face turned green, then pale, then back again multiple times. Lang Jun Cai finally waved his hand and scattered a large number of origin crystals on the table. He then exclaimed, release them immediately. Untie them yourself, Ling Han said. Lang Jun Cai almost exploded from his fury. He glared venomously at Ling Han for a while before finally turning around and leaving to let those underlings of his down. He swore to himself that this matter would not end so easily. He indeed could not beat Gong Letian, but there was still young Master Liu. Ha 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 ha. Gong Letian laughed loudly, raised his cup towards Ling Han, and said with a smile, Brother Ling, I'll offer you a toast. I definitely want to befriend a friend like you. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, I will have to give the matter some consideration. Gong Letian pretended to be displeased, delivered a friendly punch to Ling Han's chest, and said, you're really not fun. Hee, these ingredients. After so much talk, his nature as a born foodie began to flame up again. Hunyo instantly became stingy. She stretched out her 2 slender arms to protect the table, and exclaimed, all Nyos. All of them laughed. When the human kabobs had been let down, other customers soon continuously streamed into the restaurant. However, every single dish of the 8 treasures needed 1 origin crystal. All of them were here for that, but the majority would only order one and eat to their heart's content. After all, there were not many people as obnoxiously wealthy as Gong Letian. Even so, the restaurant still earned a considerable profit. The daily income of the restaurant was about 500 to 600 origin crystals. Otherwise, it would not have attracted the covetous eyes of Lang Jun Cai. As a foodie, Gong Letian was very stubborn. He kept pestering Ling Han and wanted him to agree to deliver the ingredients at any cost. However, there were indeed not many demonic beasts inside the Black Tower. Ling Han was not the type that would soften just because someone begged him, and so naturally just ignored him. As a result, Gong Letian would come practically every day and continuously launch a verbal barrage on Ling Han's ears. Additionally, he would, without any reservations at all, join them for meals. His skin was really thick enough to make one shiver. Come, come, come. I'll bring you out today to increase your knowledge. On the fourth day, it seemed that Gong Letian finally realized he had a conscience, and actually came over before mealtime. He grabbed Ling Han and left. Knowledge about what? Ling Han asked, smiling. You'll know when we get there, Gong Letian said mysteriously. The extreme young city was a very big place, and they would of course not use any kind of movement technique within the city. Thus, after about an hour, they finally arrived at a small lake. The leaves of the willow trees on the banks hung over the lake, and there were gazebos, platforms, towers, and pavilions, casting beautiful reflections on the water. The scenery here was extremely beautiful. Gong Letian brought Ling Han to a courtyard by the lake. There were 2 old servants standing guard at the door. When they saw Gong Letian approach, they immediately lowered in a bow and said, "Young Master Gong has arrived." Gong Letian nodded, and asked, "Has the feast begun?" "We're still waiting for a few important guests, so it has not begun yet," one of the old servants answered. "Great." Gong Letian let out a breath of relief, and with a wave of his hand, signaled Ling Han to follow him before he entered into the courtyard. The courtyard was very big. Upon entry, there was a huge garden, the lake on the left side. The water glistened, making for a beautiful scene. On the grass by the lake, there were already multiple banquet tables arranged. At this time, quite a number of people were already seated. "What gathering is this?" Ling Han asked. "There are a considerable number of people from the North region's prodigy role here today. Firstly, to gain some knowledge, and secondly, some have come back from the deep mountains and great streams, bringing with them spiritual herbs or ancient relics that have a high commercial value," Gong Letian said. Ling Han nodded. Then this kind of gathering was really worth coming to. Perhaps he could even find out some news about the remaining 2 main medicinal ingredients. He asked, "What is the North region's prodigy role?" "Yi, you don't even know about that." Gong Letian looked utterly surprised. "What kind of secluded, remote corner did you actually come from?" The North region's prodigy role records all the young elites of the North region under 30 years old. A total of 100 people can be recorded on the roll. Ling Han gave an O, and said, "This is really the first time I've heard of it. Tell me about it then. What geniuses are on the roll?" "Nuo, take this." Gong Letian turned his hand over, and out of nowhere, a book appeared. Spatial Ring. The extreme young city was the extreme young city indeed. Even a profligate young master like this was qualified to wear a spatial ring. Ling Han took the book from him and glanced at it. The words North region's prodigy role were written on the cover. The whole book was designed very finely. The brim was inlaid with gold, and the letters were stamped with gold. It was designed to look as luxurious as possible. He flipped it open and looked at it. The words edited by Spirit Treasures Pavilion were written on the first page. Right, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion really had a hand in a lot of thing. "This book is worth 1 origin crystal," Gong Letian said from the side. "How black-hearted." Chapter 376, North Region's Prodigy Role. Chapter 376, North Region's Prodigy Role. Reverie _ The things Forget Not sold were certainly expensive, but at least they were genuine. After these booklets were compiled, it could easily be copied, so how could it still sell for so much? Ling Han flipped through it casually. The book was about 100 pages, But only 100 people could make the North Region's Prodigy roll. Was it necessary to introduce them with such a thick booklet? He flipped to the second page, and saw something written on top. Yu Kuan Kang, male. Current age 29 years old, 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier from the Great Sorrow sect, ranked number 1 on the Prodigy roll 2 years ago, battle prowess estimated to be at 17 stars, current number 1 of the North Region's Prodigy roll. Not bad, not bad, a 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier at 29 years old. At least, in Ling Han's former life, that was considered a genius amongst geniuses. However, martial arts in his previous lifetime were far from enjoying the prosperity that they did now. At least they couldn't be compared to his current lifetime. Thus, strong young cultivators that appeared in this lifetime were nothing special as the environment was different. Ling Han continued reading. Some of his great deeds were written since the Prodigy battle, such as when he defeated or killed a certain somebody. The information was very detailed, and the final aggregation obtained an estimate of 17 stars battle prowess, reaching the number 1 on the Prodigy roll. It was no wonder this book could sell for 1 origin crystal. The information was certainly quite detailed, revealing most of Yu Kuan Kang's trump cards. It included what spirit tool he used, what abilities he had, what techniques he was skilled in, and even what layer he reached. When was this book compiled? Ling Han asked Gong Letian. It's published at the beginning of every year. It's definitely the one with the most demand in North Region's martial arts circle, Gong Letian immediately said. 1 origin crystal really isn't expensive. This is published in limited numbers, and if you don't have sufficient status, people won't even pay attention to you if even you had a handful of origin crystal. Ling Han nodded. No wonder he had never heard of such a thing in the Rain Country. Prodigy battles occur once every 3 years. This is the most direct ranking battle. Afterwards, it will be slightly adjusted according to the battle records of those who make the ranks. However, after 30 years of age, one can't make it into the roll anymore, Gong Letian said with some anticipation. When it's the end of the year, 27 people will go off the roll. I'm not sure if I can squeeze in, even if it's the last place. Ha ha ha. A mocking laugh resounded. A purple-clothed youngster walked over, wearing a smile of disdain. Gong Letian, what sort of pipe dream are you having? You want to squeeze into the Prodigy roll with your abilities? Then, can't pigs be called experts? Ling Han didn't recognize this person, but he recognized Lang Jun Cai, who followed behind the purple-clothed youngster with a sinister expression. Obviously, this purple-clothed youngster was most likely the Liu family's great young master, Liu Qi Yuan. Otherwise, those with a normal status didn't have the right to provoke Gong Letian. As expected, Gong Letian immediately jumped up and shouted, Liu Qi Yuan, you want to fight? Liu Qi Yuan snorted and said, this young master won't stoop to using violence on you. I'll say it now, have the person beside you obediently kowtow in apology, and this young master won't harbor grievances, or else, hem. What are you snorting so mysteriously for? You think this young master is afraid of you? Gong Letian was immediately pissed off. This is my brother, and if you dare touch a single hair on him, this young master will tear down your listen to the Rain Pavilion. Liu Qi Yuan's gaze showed coldness as he said, then just wait and see. No one can slap one of my people and still live perfectly fine. Ling Han swept a glance over and said, are you threatening me? Ha ha, threatening you? Are you fit to be? Liu Qi said in disdain. As he saw it, only Gong Letian had the right to threaten him and look him straight in the eye. As for Ling Han, he could kill him by just extending a finger. Ha ha ha, the atmosphere seems to be a bit intense. Another youngster alked over, and said while laughing, give me some face and stop fighting, alright? In deference for Master Rong, of course. Liu Qi Yuan laughed and gave Ling Han and Gong Letian a vicious gaze before turning to walk over to the banquet by the river. Lang Jun Cai was only just in a lion's hide, giving Ling Han a glare before following to leave. After the youngster surnamed Rong mediated, he smiled at Gong Letian and turned to leave as well. His called Rong Gao minute, currently ranked 94th on the Prodigy roll, Gong Letian said full of admiration. 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier can rank 94th, I guess it's not hard to make it onto the roll, Ling Han said, smiling. Gong Letian instantly rolled his eyes, snatched the booklet from Ling Han's hands, flipped to a page at the very end, and pointed as he said, "See for yourself just how strong he is." Ling Han swept a glance. It wrote, Rome Gao Minute, male, current age 25 years old, 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, from the extreme Yang sect, Rome family, ranked 97th on the prodigy roll 2 years ago, battle prowess estimated to be 16 stars, currently ranked 94th on North Region's prodigy roll. Oh, 2 years had passed, so he'd improved. Next, Luo Lai's battle achievements in the 2 years were listed, proving that he was qualified to sit on the 94th seat. Surprising, right? Battle prowess of 16 stars. He can suppress people with thin arms and legs like us with one finger. Gong Letian said, full of admiration, just how many youngsters yearned and pursued being listed on North Region's prodigy roll. Unfortunately, only 100 people could make it into the ranks every 3 years. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "You are you, I am I, don't mix us together." This was the honest truth. He really didn't care about 16 stars battle prowess. Gong Letian rolled his eyes at him and pulled him over to the banquet seats. The table was small, and only 4 people could be seated by it. It was mostly 2 to 3 people per table, and very rarely were all 4 seats occupied. Ling Han continued to flip through North Region's prodigy roll. He wanted to see a few of the prodigies he'd heard about. Lu Yang, Zhu Xian Zuoyu Da, and so on. He rummaged through, and found Lu Yang's name on the 12th page. Lu Yang, male, current age 24 years old, 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, from the Beast Emperor sect, ranked 17th on the prodigy roll 2 years ago. Battle prowess is estimated to be 12 stars, but on top of his beast pet, frost-clouded leopard, his aggregated battle prowess reaches 13 stars. Currently ranks 9th on the North Region's prodigy roll. Ling Han was a bit shocked. Yu Kuan-lun, who was first, was already in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, but the tier of the 9th place dropped to 3rd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Another look at the last place, only the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. In other words, the higher the ranking, the greater the difference in strength was, and the lower the ranking, the closer the ranked one's strength. However, at the year-end prodigy battle, Yu Kuan-lun and the top 8 would be unable to attend due to their age, so the tier of the new first place would drop by a lot. Only 4 months' time, no matter how freakish Lu Yang was, he wouldn't be able to charge into 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. He was still young after all. Ling Han turned a few more pages and saw Zhu Xian'er's name. This name was actually much more resounding compared to Lu Yang and Zuoyu Da, because the person was a girl that even Gong Letian would talk about again and again from time to time. Chapter 377, Counting Prodigies. Chapter 377, Counting Prodigies. Reverie _ Zhu Xian'er, female, current age 21 years old, 2nd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, from the Half Moon sect, ranked 76th in the prodigy battle 2 years ago, but broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier 1 year later. This year she even advanced into the 2nd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. It can be imagined that her ability will advance further in next year's prodigy gathering, reaching the 3rd or even the 4th layer. Estimated battle prowess is 12 stars, currently ranks 13th on North Region's prodigy roll. Ling Han paused and nodded. Zhu Xian'er was proved worthy of being called a genius. This cultivation progress was somewhat surprising. In other words, she broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier at 20 years old, and after she entered the spiritual pedestal tier, she could increase 2 layers in a year. It was considerably surprising. He continued turning the pages. Zuoyu Da ranked 19th, while Limitless Sex triplets were 67th, 68th, and 69th, but the evaluation said that because the 3 were 1, if they joined hands, their battle prowess could reach the 33rd place. 2 of the 7 sons of Ao family also made it into the ranks. It was Ao Xinglai who ranked 78th and Ao Wu Wei who ranked 89th. Calculating based on this ranking, he could probably only place 40th or so. However, there were still 4 months before the end of the year, and with Ling Han's progress, he could at least reach the 8th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. His rank would naturally far exceed the 40s. Besides, this was the most normal speed, and if he could receive extra natural treasures, Then it was hard to tell, as ninth layer of the spiritual ocean tier or even the spiritual pedestal tier itself weren't out of consideration. Whatever, should I even get in on the action on such a thing like playing house? It's not like there's any benefit. Ling Han shook his head. With his identity as a former heaven tier warrior, competing against a few small youngsters was embarrassing to begin with. Not to mention that there wasn't much time, and he might not even attain number 1. That would be truly embarrassing. Today, quite a few beauties from the extreme young city came. Gong Letian looked to the left and right. Look, that's Jiang Yuxian, Jiang family's eldest daughter. There is also Di Tinglan, Di family's third daughter over there. Ah, Gong Sun family's seventh daughter is here too, Gong Sun Lan, who are beautiful and pure like an orchid. Ling Han looked following his finger, and as expected, Di Tinglan, Jiang Yuxian, and Gong Sun Lan Hui were all extremely beautiful, not losing at all to even Liu Yutong and Li Sai-chan. Stunning beauty, outstanding martial arts talent, and noble birth made these 3 girls resplendent stars that many pursued. It could be seen that many young men were circling around the 3 girls, hoping to attract their attention. Sadly, their standards are too high, or else this young master could introduce you to them. Gong Letian nudged at Ling Han's waist. Ling Han laughed briefly and said, I politely decline. True, your Liu Yutong is also a great beauty, not losing to any of them, Gong Letian said. Ling Han only laughed, thinking Gong Letian hadn't seen a true beauty. In his former lifetime, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was called the world's number 1 beauty, far from what Liu Yutong and Jiang Yuxian could compare to. Unfortunately, she was a bit barbaric, but otherwise, he really could take her as a wife. Ling Han hurriedly shook off the chills. He actually thought of taking a barbaric woman like Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden as a wife. Did he get some screw-loose? Zhongzi Wei is here, someone suddenly shouted, which immediately made more than half of the people stand up. Ling Han immediately flipped through his memories. This was the 54th rank on the North Region's Prodigy roll. His battle prowess reached 18 stars, and he could fight surpassing 9 stars. This was extremely shocking. On the entire Prodigy roll, there was only one person who could battle surpassing 10 stars, Zhu Xian. The rest of the prodigies could only surpass 9 stars. However, surpassing 9 stars at the spiritual pedestal tier and surpassing 9 stars at the spiritual ocean tier were completely different concepts. The higher the tier, the harder it was to fight surpassing one's own tier. Zhongzi Wei could surpass 9 stars, but once he broke to the spiritual pedestal tier, he might drop to 8 stars, or even 7 stars. Those like Sword Emperor and Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden who could still fight surpassing 10 stars were truly the geniuses amongst geniuses, the most exceptional freaks. From this point, Zhu Xian certainly had amazing talent. No wonder she was sought after by sects in the middle state. It's Zhongzi Wei. Gong Letian immediately revealed an excited expression. 54th on the prodigy roll, and the most impressive thing about him is that he doesn't come from a large sect but from a small family, yet he was able to squeeze into the prodigy roll with his own efforts. He's my idol. In a short while, everyone crowded around a slender youngster. Even the 3 beauties revolved around him, each one blossoming with a beautiful smile, displaying their stunning looks without restraint. Zhongzi Wei ranked 54th on North Region's prodigy roll and could be said to be one of the brightest stars in the North Region. As long as he didn't die, he would definitely become an important person in the North Region. People would definitely pay close attention to such a person, competing to be on friendly terms with him. I'm truly envious. Gong Letian looked with a burning gaze. He really wanted to become a person that received the attention of millions. Although he was a wealthy second generation with countless people that bootlicked him, that was all because of the family behind him and not because of he himself. As a youngster full of pride, he thirsted for respect attained by his own abilities. Liu Qi Yuan went to greet Zhongzi Wei as well, raising a glass to Zhongzi Wei. Considering Liu Qi Yuan's background, Zhongzi Wei was rather modest. The two were having a great conversation, but it was too far and Ling Han couldn't hear what they were saying. The banquet continued, many people on the prodigy roll arriving one after another. Since once in 3 years prodigy battle was starting in a little more than 4 months and the location was just happened to be the extreme young city, many people already came over. Even several experts on the roll came, but none were ranked higher than Zhongzi Wei, so there wasn't such a large commotion on their arrival as previously. Coming so early was firstly to avoid delays on the way and missing out on the grand gathering, and secondly to trade with large amounts of young experts gathered together. They could exchange spirit medicine, treasures, and whatnot, some of which might be of great use. Today's banquet stemmed from this purpose. After the few high-ranked experts spoke of their recent adventures, the treasure exchange segment was carried out. Everyone stood up, introducing their treasure and the type of treasure they needed to exchange for to everyone else. It was sort of like an auction, with all sorts of things like arts, techniques, medicinal pills, and some things that had unclear origins, ancient things found in historic ruins, some of which were even older than the time of Ling Han's previous life. Some treasures were substantially precious. Zhongzi Wei took out a stalk of 600-year-old gold silk thousand spark fruit, a fourth-tier spirit fruit that could increase spiritual ocean tier cultivation by a great fold. Since Zhongzi Wei had already reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he only needed to solidify his cultivation at the moment and did not need to increase his cultivation or use the fruit. However, there were too many people who hadn't reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so it triggered an intense competition over it. Chapter 378 – Exchanging Spirit Fruits. Chapter 378 – Exchanging Spirit Fruits. Reverie _ Ling Han was also very interested. He was now at the 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, far from the peak stage spiritual ocean tier, so gold silk thousand spark fruit was especially suited for him, enough to increase him by 2 tiers. So at the end of the year, he would be at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, and possibly even the spiritual pedestal tier. After all, once his cultivation of spirit power sufficed, the large tier barrier practically didn't even exist. However, Ling Han wasn't interested in contention of ranks amongst the younger generation, as he was way past the age of having the desire to prevail over others. Unless there were treasures that could interest him, of course. However, as a person with a high sense of self-respect, he still hoped to become the strongest. Even if he differed several ages from those in the top ranks on the prodigy roll, he had strong roots that allowed him to be compared with them, so he wouldn't want to lose, either. Everyone took out things they thought were precious for the exchange, but Zhongzi Wei kept shaking his head in refusal as none met his expectations. Ling Han stood up and said, "Brother Zhong, I have a bottle of medicinal pills, not sure if you'd be interested." "Brother Zhong?" Everyone looked at Ling Han in unison, revealing an expression of ridicule. What a joke, a mere nobody at T4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier dared to call an expert on the prodigy rank a brother. How truly defiant. Did a prodigy like Zhongzi Wei not have the ability to break into the spiritual pedestal tier? No, he didn't break through not because he couldn't, but because he wanted to compact his cultivation in the spiritual ocean tier till it was extremely solidified in order to charge into higher tiers in the future. Amongst the young prodigies nowadays, which one of them didn't have grand ambitions? Martial arts were in a prosperous age, and elites emerged one after another from various paths, breaking the lowest age of breakthrough of a certain tier as the amount of top elites grew more and more. Which youngster didn't want to squeeze into the pinnacle of martial arts, guiding people and their paths? Several bottles of medicinal pills. Would Zhongzi Wei lack medicinal pills? What sort of medicinal pill could someone at the 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier offer? It was said that forces in the middle state offered him an olive branch. Although they might not be a super large force like Heaven Sword Sect, it was definitely astounding. Hey, don't you speak carelessly. Gong Letian hurriedly pulled on the corner of Ling Han's clothes, feeling that everyone's disdainful gazes were brought over to him. It was truly an undeserved misfortune. Ling Han only smiled at him, and didn't explain. Zhongzi Wei didn't show ridicule on his face, but said indifferently, "This little brother, what sort of medicinal pill are you using to trade?" Ling Han took out a bottle of Restore Origin pill and tossed it over. After Zhongzi Wei caught it and opened the bottle's stopper, as the medicinal smell drifted outwards, his indifferent expression vanished all of a sudden. He cried out, "Restore Origin pill. What? Restore Origin pill?" People cried out one after another, their gazes instantly burning with desire. For normal people, the Restore Origin pill was not only not a spirit medicine, but also a hindrance. This couldn't improve one's cultivation, and contrarily, it could lower one's cultivation. Restore Origin Pill's purpose was to hammer at the foundation, making it extremely solid. Undoubtedly, it would shorten original foundation, and more effort was needed to repair it to the original state. With regards to normal people, they didn't need to compact their foundation, only rapidly advancing in tier. However, for prodigies, they strived for perfection, endeavoring to cultivate every tier to perfection. They could be unmatched in the same tier and have the ability to soar into the highest tiers, but once they reached a certain height with an unstable foundation, the tall building would immediately tilt and collapse. There were so many of those at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, so why were there only a few dozen that could squeeze into the prodigy role? It was precisely because their tiers were solidified to an astounding degree, granting them battle prowess far surpassing their own tier. Someone in the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier didn't need to care much about planting a firm foundation, so they could only battle surpassing 2 stars. At the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, prodigies started to compact their foundations in preparation for the future, so while their tier remained unchanged, their stars of battle prowess skyrocketed. It wouldn't be strange for them to battle surpassing 3 stars or even 4 stars. Thus, there were so many of those at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier on the prodigy roll, and their battle prowess was varied greatly. Zhongzi Wei had reached peak stage of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier half a year ago and had been suppressing his cultivation since then to compact his foundation, striving to break through to the spiritual pedestal tier at a state of perfection. With this one move, he could possess prowess surpassing 2 stars and even 3 stars. If he had Restore Origin Pill and 4 months' time, which was enough to compact his tier to perfection, then with his talent, breaking through to the spiritual pedestal tier was no problem at all. He already had the ability to break through and had just been suppressing it all along. When the time came, he would soar into the sky, squeezing into top 30 and even top 20. He hurriedly took a closer look, and when he saw that there were actually 20 Restore Origin Pills, he was instantly elated. Even the hand he held the bottle with somewhat trembled. It wasn't like he had never seen or eaten a Restore Origin Pill, so he immediately discovered that they were genuine and very high in quality, but just how high, he could not be certain as he wasn't an alchemy master. "I'll trade." Zhongzi Wei made a prompt decision. A prodigy like him definitely had the inherent quality of being decisive. An irresolute and hesitant person couldn't possibly come this far. Ling Han smiled with raised eyebrows. He knew that a prodigy like Zhongzi Wei most valued medicinal pills like the Restore Origin Pill. Sadly, yellow dragon fruits were hard to find, and the stock he had at hand was almost all used up. Fortunately, after receiving this gold silk 1000 spark fruit, he didn't have other great aspirations at the spiritual ocean tier. After he reached the spiritual pedestal tier, Restore Origin Pill couldn't possibly be exchanged for the treasures of the world that he needed, so it didn't affect him much. Zhongzi Wei tossed over the gold silk 1000 spark fruit, which Ling Han stored in the Black Tower. The two were all smiles as if nothing had happened, showing their extremely strong self-control. If it were normal people, they'd definitely leave in a hurry once they received a treasure. Fairy Zhu is here. Fairy Zhu is here. It was only a small commotion at the start, but it immediately stirred up everyone present. Even Gong Letian stood up abruptly and said, "Where's Fairy Zhu? Where's Fairy Zhu? Fair Zhu? Was that Zhu Xian-er?" Ling Han was somewhat surprised. Was this girl's charm really that great? He saw that even Zhongzi Wei completely lost self-control. His expression was filled with craze, without a shred of appearance an expert and no different from other people. To be able to make Zhongzi Wei, who had such strong self-control, sink so deeply, it could be imagined just how great Zhu Xian'er's charm was. At this moment, even Ling Han was somewhat curious in what way was this Zhu Xian'er so beautiful that she could charm everyone in the north and even interest the prodigy of the Heaven Sword sect in the Middle State. The entire place was in uproar as everyone gushed out to greet Fairy Zhu. After 10 whole minutes, a white-clothed girl walked from within the crowd. A white gauze covered her face and her appearance couldn't be seen at all, but her graceful bearing made people refreshed. Chapter 379, Zhu Xian-er. Chapter 379, Zhu Xian-er. Reverie _ This white-clothed girl was like a celestial fairy. Each step showed her grace and beauty. She was dignified, calm, and virtuous, but her physique was truly alluring and her legs slender and long, enough to reach the waist of someone of the same height. The longer a female's legs, the more alluring the physique. The ratio of her body was absolutely perfect, such that simply her walking stimulated endless daydreaming. She had a slim and willowy waist, yet her buttocks jutted out, revealing an amazing curve and emitting a luscious bearing. Her breasts weren't extremely large, but could fill an entire hand, and her pink neck was like jade, elegant like a swan's. Her dark hair was like waterfall, tied up by a white silk ribbon. She had no adornments on her entire body, yet it made people feel that this was the most perfect decision, since no matter what adornments were worn on her body, it would only make her appear tacky. Ling Han was astonished. As expected, this girl didn't need to reveal her looks at all to make people feel that she was like a fairy from the heavens, the most beautiful in all of time. The only other woman that ever made him feel this way was Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, he had seen Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's appearance, and it certainly fitted her perfect physique. From appearance alone, Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was definitely the most beautiful woman in the world, so beautiful that it felt like she shouldn't have appeared in the mortal world. But Ari. Ling Han sighed. That woman had to be so rude, coming over from time to time and taking random things. Reasoning with her would result in her threatening gaze, and his 4 disciples were beaten up terribly one after another. Speaking of reverence, Ling Han could pat his chest and say that his 4 disciples were definitely more obedient toward Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden than him. Hey, you say no, but your eyes are pretty honest. Now you know that Fairy Zhu is unmatched in her generation, right? Gong Lishan's voice sounded beside Ling Han's ear and awakened him from his reminiscence. Ling Han simply smiled and didn't try to explain. He still thought that if his abilities surpassed Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's, then marrying a wife like her wouldn't be too bad, it'd be pleasant to the eyes. However, strength was a necessary safeguard, or else she'd suppress him, and maybe at night, he'd be the one lying on the bottom. Once Zhu Xian'er arrived, she immediately became the center of attention. It was like she was born a goddess and everyone else would pale before her. Her graceful bearing was too alluring, such that others couldn't even be envious. No matter male or female, they all looked at her with a fanatical gaze as if they would all be willing to plunge into raging fire and boiling water after one word of command from her. Ling Han was shocked on the inside. They were too fanatical, he would definitely not do such a thing. Xian'er is very happy to be able to see all of you young prodigies. A toast to everyone. Zhu Xian'er held up her wine bowl. Instantly, people revealed expressions of being overwhelmed by flattery and honor, hurriedly holding up their wine bowls as well. As Zhu Xian'er lifted up the edge of her white gauze, revealing a snow-white chin and dark red lips, people were as if they'd been drugged, some spurted blood from their nose, and some even fainted from excitement. Everyone drank the wine with one gulp. Having received a toast from Zhu Xian'er, they felt that this life was completely worth it even if they died. Ling Han was felt a slight undulation within. Although he hadn't seen Zhu Xian'er's complete appearance, just from looking at her chin and her small lips, a beautiful image could be outlined inside people's minds from those exceedingly beautiful proportions. It was just a tip of the iceberg, yet Ling Han was certain that Zhu Xian'er's beauty was far beyond Liu Yutong and the other girls, even qualifying to compare against Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. However, it was impossible to sway Ling Han. It couldn't be helped. He saw Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden almost every day. She did things that made him very gloomy, so he couldn't like her even if he wanted to. With such a preventive measure, so what if Zhu Xian'er was the second Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden? After Zhu Xian'er proposed a toast, she lowered the white gauze, instantly making everyone feel an intense reluctance. They felt depressed, as if they'd been gouged and had lost the thing they loved the most. She opened her mouth and said, "Xian'er wants to buy a medicinal ingredient. If no one has it, then news on the medicinal ingredient will do as well. Xian'er will repay you greatly. Fairy Zhu, speak as you will." Yes, to be able to serve Fairy Zhu, that's our honor. Through raging fire and boiling waters, 10,000 deaths won't stop us. Everyone shouted one after another, even a few girls looked fanatical. There was no emotion on Zhu Xian'er's delicate face. She said, "The ingredient Xian'er wants is a 7th-tier medicinal grass called crimson red chilling icegrass." Crimson red chilling icegrass? What's that? Never heard of it. Many people immediately shook their heads, but Ling Han was momentarily startled, because crimson red chilling icegrass was one of the 2 main ingredients he needed. He never would have thought he'd come into conflict with Zhu Xian'er. If the 2 were to compete, it could be imagined that countless of people would definitely resent him. Whatever, so what if she was exceptionally beautiful? She couldn't even compare to a single hair on this master. "Fairy Zhu, I know where the crimson red chilling icegrass is." A youngster stood up very excitedly. Without pressing, the youngster spilled it all out. 3 months ago, when I just left the Dark Demon Forest, I soon heard someone speak of the crimson red chilling icegrass, which should be in the depths of the forest. Hiss. Everyone gasped in astonishment. The Dark Demon Forest was one of the more notorious vicious places with flower blossom tier beasts in its depths. Normally, no one dared to enter the depths. "Fairy Zhu, the Dark Demon Forest is too dangerous. It would better to go in 2 years. "Nonsense. Fairy Zhu needs crimson red chilling icegrass to save someone. Can she wait for 2 years? So you want Fairy Zhu to risk entering the Dark Demon Forest? She'll lose her life. Indeed, in 2 more years, maybe Fairy Zhu can advance into the flower blossom tier. She won't have to be afraid by then." Ling Han was moved. The Dark Demon Forest actually had the crimson red chilling icegrass. He was ordered to harvest 7 stalks of the fiery sun grass and had no intention of doing so, but by the looks of it now, it seemed like fate was driving him there, mysterious and inexorable. Looks like he'd have to go to the Dark Demon Forest. Zhu Xian'er was somewhat worried at first that it would bring trouble when the person spoke openly about the location of the crimson red chilling icegrass. Thinking again, how many people dared to enter the Dark Demon Forest anyways? She thanked that person and promised that if they'd encountered a trouble, they'd be very welcome to go to the Half Moon sect to find her. Since she was in a rush to find the crimson red chilling icegrass, she soon said goodbye and left. Once she left, the atmosphere instantly dropped drastically, and people no longer had the mood to stay. Not to mention, quite a few people already traded for the treasure they desired. Soon, they started bidding farewell one after another. Ling Han was very satisfied with this trip. He not only obtained gold silk 1000 spark fruit, but also obtained news on crimson red chilling icegrass. He returned to refine gold silk 1000 spark fruit. Chapter 380, Bone Forming Pill. Chapter 380, Bone Forming Pill. Reverie _ It was inappropriate to always live at an inn. Since Ling Han had opened 2 stores in Jiyang City to seize endless streams of origin crystals, Ling Han had already set out to purchase a house. However, in the short amount of time, he hadn't found a suitable one. Liu Yutong and Li Sai-chan were very picky with the quality of the residence, but if it were up to Ling Han, as long as the place was clean, wasn't living anywhere all the same? So, they still stayed temporarily at the inn. After returning to the inn, Ling Han immediately flashed into the Black Tower. Improving cultivation obviously came first. He took in the gold silk 1000 spark fruit and burst 100 pieces of origin crystal in passing. Wang, instantly, inexhaustible origin power wrapped around him and continuous streams of power poured into his body, as if kneading. Hong, the spirit fruit's medicinal effect was exhibited. Ling Han used his body as a furnace to fuse the medicinal effects, and cooperating with the power origin crystals provided, his cultivation immediately began to skyrocket. 2 spiritual oceans, one yin and one yang, spinning in opposite directions, began to expand under the stacked effects of medicinal and origin power. It would be fast if placed on anyone else, but Ling Han's spiritual oceans were far larger than that of normal spiritual ocean tier warriors, so it appeared extremely slow. Ling Han estimated that this fruit could at most increase his cultivation by 1 small tier, and this was due to the large amount of origin power that he could expend. Otherwise, if it aided him in advancing half a small tier, that would already be considered good. Why were his spiritual oceans overly large and he even had 2, one yin and one yang? 2 spiritual oceans kept moving against each other like a millstone, constantly polishing his origin power. The result of this was the complete removal of flaws in his origin power, making it more concentrated. People usually started solidifying their cultivation after they reached the peak stage of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but Ling Han carried it out constantly, so his tier was extremely stable. However, this meant that his advancement was very slow. Even if he was slow, he was still faster than normal people by 10 times. After all, he was the Grandmaster of Alchemy and didn't lack origin crystals. After a day and a night, Ling Han completely refined and absorbed the medicinal power of the spirit fruit, and his cultivation reached the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, one step closer to the 9th layer. He circled around inside the Black Tower and pulled out several stalks of spirit grass, deciding to refine a few high-tier medicinal pills for auction. The profits from the tavern and the medicine store were small but steady, but if he really wanted to get rich overnight, then he could only refine high-tier medicinal pills for auction. However, Spirit Treasure's pavilion didn't hold auctions every day, so Ling Han only decided to refine pills a few days after he'd arrived. Spirit Treasure's pavilion's next large-scale auction was in 10 days. Ling Han refined a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill, bone-forming pill. This medicinal pill was for the flower blossom tier cultivators. After one took the bone-forming pill, one's bones would be reconstructed, advancing towards a tougher state. This was very practical, because when 2 flower blossom tier warriors attacked each other, even if one did not lose out on origin power, their bones could break due to lack of durability. When one's bones were shattered, it affected one's strength, so how embarrassing would that be? So the tougher one refined one's physique, then the higher one could reach in the future. This was the same thing as compacting one's cultivation, but from a different approach. Only those in the flower blossom tier could take bone-forming pill because they surpassed the mortal level and blossomed a heavenly flower on their spiritual pedestal, giving them an endless stream of vitality. For anyone else, it would be courting death. Ling Han smiled satisfyingly. For this bone-forming pill, he didn't plan on accepting 1-star origin crystals, but 2-star or 3-star she would soon advance into the spiritual pedestal tier and the effect of 1-star origin crystals would drop substantially. The profits from the tavern and the medicine store were enough to provide Liu Yutong and the others with resources to cultivate. Ling Han headed to the Spirit Treasure's pavilion. After he took out bone-forming pill, it immediately stirred the higher-ups of the Spirit Treasure's pavilion. Such a medicinal pill was too high in grade, and for caution's sake, they especially invited a Earth-grade alchemy master for appraisal. Coincidentally, the alchemist was surnamed Liu, and named Ji Tonghe just so happened to be Liu Qiyuan's grandfather. This Earth-grade alchemist was already 70 years old, and his cultivation was still at the spiritual pedestal tier, unable to surpass the mortal limit. Otherwise, for a 300-year lifespan, 70 years old was the prime of one's life. There was still hope he was an Earth-grade alchemist after all. The resources in his grasp were extremely shocking, and perhaps he could refine some sort of spirit pill that would support him in charging into the flower blossom tier. Seeing the bone-forming pill, the old man was very shocked. This was a low-level earth-grade medicinal pill which was something he could refine, but after opening the pill bottle, the old man was suddenly startled, revealing an extremely excited look and staying silent for a long while. Master Liu, a person from the Spirit Treasure's pavilion, called out lightly. Liu Jitong was finally woken up and said, "The quality of this bottle of bone-forming pill is too high, making this old man involuntarily sucked into a reverie." "How high?" the person from the Spirit Treasure's pavilion asked. Since bone-forming pill was too important, the one put in charge was a flower blossom tier elite. However, in front of an earth-grade alchemist, he appeared quite modest. This flower blossom tier elite was called Li Fei Chen. 13 stars, even 14 stars in quality. Liu Ji Tong pondered, making an evaluation. Li Fei Chen instantly gasped in astonishment. His eyes burned with desire. He was a flower blossom tier warrior, so he obviously needed bone-forming pills. The quality of 13 stars or even 14 stars gave him an urge to seize it. "Young man, this medicinal is refined by an elder from your sect." Liu Ji Tong looked at Ling Han. He definitely had to get acquainted with the alchemist who made it. In corroborating with each other, he might be able to improve upon his techniques. If it were him, the refined bone-forming pill would be at most 6 stars in quality. Ling Han cracked a smile and said, If I said I was the one who refined it, would you guys believe it? Ha 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 ha. Liu Ji-tong and Li Fei Cheng laughed at the same time. This was a colossal jokia 17-year-old, a low-level Earth-grade medicinal pill, and 13 stars in quality were things that couldn't be placed together. Ling Han laughed as well, and then took out a golden badge along with the identification crystal. Upon activating it, information on his identity was displayed. Liu Ji-tong and Li Fei Cheng's laughter stopped abruptly. "You're that Ling Han," Liu Ji-tong cried out. Several months ago, when Ling Han was authenticated as an Earth-grade alchemist, the news spread to North Pill Pavilion. There was only one word in their minds: impossible. A 17-year-old youngster actually refined an Earth-grade medicinal pill? What a bad joke. However, there were 3 Earth-grade alchemists who jointly guaranteed, and so they could only believe it even if there were still suspicions. They never would have thought that the youngest Earth-grade alchemist in history would actually appear. Ling Han nodded and said, "I'm that Ling Han." Liu Ji-tong had no more doubts. There were only so many Earth-grade alchemists in the North region, he could count these people with his fingers alone. And to refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill, only a high-level Earth-grade alchemist could do it. These people were even rarer, countable with a single palm, and each one of them was worshipped in the North Pill Pavilion as they were diligently attempting to reach the heaven grade. Who would be so bored as to refine bone-forming pill? Moreover, these 3 bone-forming pills were very fresh, still carrying the smell like they were fresh out of the furnace. Evidently, it couldn't be a work of a high-level Earth-grade alchemy master in their early years. Chapter 381, Causing a Disturbance Again. Chapter 381, Causing a Disturbance Again. Reverie _ I've long heard of Master Ling's name, and seeing you today, there's no doubt of your great reputation. This old man is impressed. Liu Ji-tong immediately cupped his hands, appearing very polite. Although they were both low-level Earth-grade alchemist, didn't being able to refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill mean that Ling Han's alchemy ability was far more than just low-level Earth-grade? He was probably limited by cultivation, and the ultimate power of his flame couldn't increase further, so he could only stop at this level. Such an alchemy genius would definitely become a grandmaster in the future. Master Ling. Li Fei Cheng cupped his hands in salutation. His martial arts tier completely crushed Ling Han's and Liu Ji-tong's, but the two's achievements in alchemy were shocking, enough to be on equal footing with him and even taking a slight edge. Who made the standing of alchemists beyond the norm? Ling Han laughed and said, "Please don't reveal information about me being here." He didn't want to be eyed by the Thousand Corpse sect. It was unknown how long this sect existed underground, and its strength could be extremely terrifying. Of course. Liu Ji-tong and Li Fei Cheng both nodded, asking nothing. Since Ling Han's identity was certain and the quality of the bone-forming pill was approved by Liu Ji-tong, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion naturally had no more doubts, placing the 3 bone-forming pills as the highlight in the next auction. "Master Ling, can we sit down some time and discuss alchemy?" Liu Ji-tong said. "Sure." Ling Han nodded. "I opened a tavern, let's just head over there." He revealed his identity, so he had the intention of becoming acquainted with Liu Ji-tong. "It's up to Master Ling." Liu Ji-tong hurriedly nodded. For him, where he ate obviously didn't matter. The point was to discuss alchemy with Ling Han. Ling Han could refine a 13 stars bone-forming pill, so he naturally far surpassed him in alchemy techniques. If he didn't take advantage of the opportunity to ask for advice, then he would be truly stupid. The two came to forget not. Ling Han had the kitchen staff prepare food, slaughtering a second-tier beast, a mysterious fragrant deer that grew up from eating 100-year-old ginseng. Simply boiling thoroughly with water, the delicious taste of it could make people's teeth fall. As expected, after Liu Ji-tong had a taste, he cared no longer for his old face and couldn't stop with his chopsticks, forgetting to ask Ling Han for advice on alchemy. Knowing that Ling Han came, Liu Yu-tong and the others came over. Ling Han introduced them one by one. Everyone sat down and ate. Hu Nyo's enormous appetite naturally shocked Liu Ji-tong. The old man even felt an impending crisis, fearing that he wouldn't beat Hu Nyo in snatching the food. After they were half full, Liu Ji-tong finally remembered the proper business, hurriedly consulting Ling Han on alchemy techniques. Ling Han spoke casually. Every word from the Grandmaster of Alchemy was naturally like a gem. Very soon, Liu Ji-tong forgot his identity, and involuntarily stood up respectfully by Ling Han's side like an alchemy boy in his teens, listening to the teachings of his respected teacher. In Liu Ji-tong's eyes, Ling Han's status was raised infinitely, even surpassing the 5 high-level Earth-grade alchemists a heaven-grade master. He has heard those 5 express their views on alchemy, but compared to Ling Han, none of them understood it as deeply. The difference was almost like heaven and earth. Could this one be the reincarnation of the Grandmaster of Alchemy? Or else how did a mere 17-year-old have such a shocking understanding on alchemy? Don't say, he actually guessed right. Peng, 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 peng. At this moment, clamor came from below, making Ling Han stop. Liu Ji-tong was deeply absorbed, as if a brand new door was slowly opening up to him that would allow him to become a middle-level alchemy master. Limited by cultivation, he couldn't refine medium-level medicinal pill at the moment, but as long as he advanced into the flower blossom tier, everything would come easily. That was just like Ling Han, who had the martial arts comprehension of the heaven tier in the previous life and now only needed to accumulate cultivation. Once he had enough cultivation, he would smoothly advance. He was instantly infuriated and his killing intent spread. He wished he could immediately tear the person who interrupted Master Ling into 10,000 pieces. "I'll have a look," Zhu Wuju said promptly, turning to leave the room. Zhu Wuju arrived at the bottom floor. 2 youngsters were standing in the lobby. They brought a dozen underlings who were chasing out the customers. Every one of them looked malicious, and even the store staff didn't dare step forward to stop. Zhu Wuju only recognized one of the 2 youngsters, Lang Jun Cai. If Ling Han were to come, he would recognize the other person, Liu Qi Yuan, who was Lang Jun Cai's master. Lang Jun Cai was obviously not resigned. He had planned on taking over Forget Not, which was equivalent to possessing a gold mountain. He never thought that not only would he not get the gold mountain, but he also would be extorted for 4,000 origin crystals. He knew Ling Han had Gong Letian as support and couldn't resist him, so he found Liu Qi Yuan. With a little instigation, Liu Qi Yuan was moved. A gold mountain, who wouldn't want to take over it? Lang Jun Cai was afraid of Gong Letian, but was he afraid? Of course not. Then go for it. This time, he fetched a spiritual pedestal tier elite that was worshipped in the family. With such an elite's backing, he wouldn't be afraid of forcibly making Ling Han lower his head. "Go, get your boss out here to greet young Master Liu," Lang Jun Cai said coldly, feeling extremely annoyed inside. This gold mountain was his, should have been his, but Liu Qi Yuan already made a move, so he could only get the leftover soup, and there was definitely no share for him with the beauties. If he could even get one portion of the profit, it would be something worth thanking the heavens for. Liu Qi Yuan was not a generous person, and besides, Lang Jun Cai expended no effort on this matter. Zhu Wuju walked down the stairs and said, "You guys are not welcome here, get lost." Haha, since when did mere gushing spring tier warriors dare to be so arrogant? Lang Jun Cai sneered. "Let me tell you, it's useless no matter who comes here today, because young Master Liu is here," he said, full of confidence. In the entire extreme young city, there were only so many spoiled second generations that could not give face to Liu Qi Yuan, and Ling Han wasn't one of them. Unless Le Gongtian was willing to protect Ling Han at all cost, he wouldn't be able to stop Liu Qi Yuan, either. After all, Gong Letian couldn't possibly always stay at Forget Not, right? Zhu Wuju was elated. He knew the identity of Liu Ji-tong, who was Liu Qi Yuan's grandfather and Liu family's pillar. However, Old Man Liu was standing quietly by Ling Han's side right now, obedient like Ling Han's alchemy apprentice. The more unbridled Liu Qi Yuan was now, the more tragically he would be crying later. He had no intention of warning them and said slowly, "Young Master Liu? He, the extreme young city's hidden talent, it's better to be a bit more modest. You really make people laugh their heads off. A mere gushing spring tier cultivator dares to lecture this young master? Take him down." Liu Qi Yuan gave a stern look and a spiritual ocean tier martial artist immediately jumped out, trying to grasp Zhu Wujiu. This was naturally very easy, and Zhu Wuju immediately fell into the opponent's hands. Slap him. Liu Qiyuan said coldly. Pa. That spiritual ocean tier warrior immediately started lashing at Zhu Wuju's face. Zhu Wuju simply clenched his teeth and didn't beg for mercy, nor did he call for help. He was set on getting Liu Qiyuan in trouble because Liu Qiyuan definitely wouldn't be heavily reprimanded from creating a disturbance. However, if he were to get beaten up terribly, would Liu Jiatong punish Liu Qiyuan lightly? He always felt ashamed and uneasy, not being able to relieve Ling Han's worries and troubles. So when he encountered things like this, he would rather suffer and get Liu Qiyuan in trouble. Chapter 382 Rammed into a Wall. Chapter 382 Rammed into a Wall. Reverie _ A mere gushing spring tier warrior dares to be impudent in front of this young master? Ph. Watch how this young master will take care of you. Liu Qiyuan was extremely angry. Before Ling Han was rude to him, and now Ling Han's subordinates also dared to be rude to him, making him beyond furious. When did the young master of the Liu family have so little face? Zhu Wuju laughed loudly and said, Liu Qiyuan, don't you regret it? Regret? Haha, damn brat, you dare to threaten this young master? Liu Qiyuan laughed out of anger and looked towards Lang Jun Cai. Lang Jun Cai sneered and said, the owner's mad, so is the slave. It seems they have no clue of young Master Liu's identity. He looked towards Zhu Wuju and said, listen, young Master Liu's grandfather is an Earth-grade alchemist. Master Liu, brat, do you know what an Earth-grade alchemist represents? Fiercer than flower blossom tier elites, even mighty spiritual infant tier cultivators need to be courteous to him. Kneel down and yell Ling Han is a bastard, and this young master will forgive you. Liu Qiyuan laughed. He came today to embarrass Ling Han to the point where Ling Han would hand over the tavern submissively. All right. Zhu Wuju agreed unreservedly. Liu Qiyuan and Lang Jun Cai were both startled how come he submitted so quickly. Wasn't this guy quite haughty earlier? Could it be that he was scared when he finally knew Liu Qiyuan's identity? Then start, Liu Qiyuan said. He was puzzled, but it was enough as long as he could embarrass Ling Han. Being betrayed by a subordinate had to feel quite awful, right? Zhu Wuju took a deep breath, about to yell. Kneel. Lang Jun Cai hurriedly said, about to charge forward and knock Zhu Juju down. Forget it. Liu Qiyuan blocked with his hand. Liu Qiyuan is a bastard. Liu Qiyuan is a bastard. Liu Qiyuan is a bastard. Zhu Wuju shouted, his voice rumbling and echoing ceaselessly. You want to die? Liu Qiyuan and Lang Jun Cai glared at the same time, looking very furious this brat dared to trick them. You're dead. Dead for sure. Lang Jun Cai bellowed. Kill him. These subordinates hesitated. It didn't matter when they killed in self-defense, but killing on one's own accord was another matter. The extreme young city had its own rules and killing people in public was a serious crime which no one would rashly violate. Therefore, no matter how much they beat Zhu Wuju, it didn't matter, but killing, they couldn't do so in front of so many people. Take him back, Liu Qiyuan said coldly. Killing him in the Liu family, who would dare to demand his release? Even if they came, he only needed to say perfunctorily, he's already been released, who knows where he's gone to, and that would do. Lang Jun Cai immediately understood and signaled with his eyes to the subordinate on the side as he said, take him. Who dares to use force? A voice seething with anger called out, sounding very old. Which bastard is it now? Lang Jun Cai said impatiently, one person after another, was there no end? Grandfather. Liu Qiyuan said with a quiver, appearing extremely nervous. Lang Jun Cai instantly felt a chill from his head all the way to his feet. Grandfather? Liu Qiyuan only had one grandfather, and that was the alchemist Liu Ji Tonga low-level Earth-grade alchemist. He actually called him a bastard. For that alone, he could be executed 100 times. Insulting an Earth-grade alchemist. His legs immediately went soft. Kneeling down, he said, this lowly one didn't insult the master intentionally. Please forgive me, Master Liu. Liu Jitong didn't even glance at Lang Jun's CAI and stared only at his grandson, revealing a both disappointed and furious expression. He had just been listening respectfully to Ling Han instruct on alchemy but was interrupted midway, which infuriated him. However, he never would have thought that the one causing trouble was his grandson, making him feel exceedingly ashamed. The kindness of guidance had with it the friendship of being half a teacher, yet his grandson came Ling Han's place to make a show of force, making him so angry and ashamed that he wanted to die. He always thought his grandson was respectful, but now he knew that it was all just appearances for him to see. Foul beast. His entire body trembled as he pointed at Liu Qiyuan, taking a sudden large stride forward, and pa, he slapped forcefully 4 consecutive times, making Liu Qiyuan's 2 cheeks bulge greatly. Liu Qiyuan felt wronged and said, "Grandfather, why did you hit me?" "Hit you? This old man will beat you to death," Liu Jitong said coldly, raising his right hand up high again. "Grandfather." Liu Qiyuan hurriedly threw himself to Liu Jitong's feet, tears and snot flowing out. He knew Liu Jitong's personality. It definitely wasn't a joke when Liu Jitong said he was going to kill someone. "I'm your only grandson, Liu family's only son for generations, and if I die, Liu family will have no future generations." Lang Jun's CAI almost fainted. Even Liu Qiyuan was going to be beaten to death, so what would be his end? Liu Jitong raised his hand high up, but couldn't smack downwards all this time. Liu Qiyuan was certainly Liu family's only son. "Jitong, forget it." Ling Han walked down from the floor above. Seeing this, Liu Qiyuan wanted to climb up from the ground. "Pa." Liu Jitong immediately gave him a slap and scolded, "You? What you? Call him master." Master?" Liu Qiyuan's eyeballs almost jutted out. This was only a 17 to 18-year-old youngster who was much younger than him. He was actually some master? Liu Jitong threw another slap, startling him once again. He wasn't stupid. Could he not have realized by now? "Master," he hurriedly called out obediently. Ling Han paid no attention, looking at Zhu Wu Jiu. He said, "Wu Ju, who did it?" "Him and him." Zhu Wu Ju immediately pointed at Liu Qiyuan and Lang Jun's CAI. Ling Han nodded and said, "Jitong, your grandson is a bit arrogant." Embarrassed, Liu Jitong nodded, and immediately slapped Liu Qiyuan again without holding back, truly like a beating to death. Liu Jiyuan wanted to escape, but someone in the spiritual ocean tier couldn't possibly be a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator's opponent, so he could only keep getting beat. When Liu Qiyuan was almost beaten to death, Ling Han intervened and blocked Liu Jitong. He said, "No need for death penalty." "Thank you, Master," Liu Jitong hurriedly said, joy filling his face. With Ling Han's talent, Ling Han would definitely become a heaven-grade alchemist. If Ling Han were to really bear a grudge, then the whole family would suffer. Now, Ling Han clearly stopped pursuing the matter, so Liu Jitong was naturally relieved. Lang Jun's CAI was covered with a cold sweat like rain. Liu Qiyuan was beaten half to death. What about him? Ling Han's gaze moved over, as if looking at a dead man. Young Master Ling, forgive me once. Forgive me once. Lang Jun's CAI said quaveringly. He now knew why Liu Yutong, Zhu Wuju, and the others had such confidence, not because they were country bumpkins, arrogant and ignorant, but because their trump card was shockingly powerful. "Master Ling, leave this child up to me," Liu Jitong said, face full of killing intent. He had to give Ling Han some justice, didn't he? He obviously was unwilling to kill his grandson, so he could only find the other culprit. Chapter 383 Aid the Fight. Chapter 383 Aid the Fight. Reverie _ Don't assume that Liu Jitong was a benign person. On the contrary, to be able to sit in his position, how could he be a person faint of heart? Not only did he execute Lang Jun's CAI, the old man also gave the Lang family an empty criminal charge, killing all their elites while the leftover women, children, and old were exiled from the extreme young city. He was truly vicious and merciless, almost destroying the Lang family. The old man certainly had reason to be enraged. Liu Qiyuan originally wouldn't have come into conflict with Ling Han, and it was completely instigated by Lang Jun's CAI. If he weren't there that day, then what end would Liu Qiyuan have met? This was almost equivalent to hatred of killing his grandson, so the old man naturally didn't hold back when he acted. With one day's effort, the Lang family vanished completely from the extreme Yang city, demonstrating the amazing capacity of an Earth-grade alchemist. Ling Han was also an Earth-grade alchemist, which meant that if he revealed his identity, he could receive the same standing and power as Liu Jitong. However, the Thousand Corpse sect was a hidden threat and Ling Han didn't want to reveal his identity so quickly, so he circled around, pulling in Liu Jitong. An Earth-grade alchemist as a supporter for the tavern and medicine store meant he didn't need to have any future worries. He was heading to the Dark Demon Forest next. Liu Yutong and the others naturally had to help him manage the store with an Earth-grade alchemist as support. He was naturally relieved. Otherwise, why would he intentionally bring Liu Jitong under his control? Ling Han made some arrangements. He didn't plan on bringing anyone on the trip to the Dark Demon Forest, but when Hunyao found out, she immediately threw a fit, following him no matter what. Thinking of the little girl's speed, Ling Han knew he couldn't get rid of her, so he nodded in agreement. However, before he even left, he received an invitation to a banquet from the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Ling Han thought it was a matter concerning the auctioning of the bone-forming pill, which involved his profits, so there naturally wasn't much to consider. He readily agreed. Hunyao was most mischievous, following him to the banquet no matter what. Arriving at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, he and Hunyao were brought to an elegant private courtyard. There was a square table set in the atrium of the courtyard, with two girls already seated there. One of them was in all white and even had white gauze covering her face. Her skin was like snow, it was indistinguishable as to whether it was the white clothes or her skin. Her hair was like clouds, dangling like a waterfall. Zhu Xian'er. Ling Han was slightly startled. Did he guess wrong and this banquet wasn't for the bone-forming pill? Another girl was roughly 21 or 22 years old. Clad in a long skirt, her body was fiery with stunning curves, her complexion was extremely beautiful, her flaming red lips filled with seductive air. Seeing Ling Han walk over holding Hunyao's hand, the red-clothed girl stood up abruptly and laughed. "Young Master Ling, please." Zhu Xian'er stood up as well, but didn't speak, simply rising half out of her seat to greet Ling Han. "Young Master Ling, this young lady is surnamed Yin and named Lan," the red-clothed beauty introduced herself. "This one is Lady Zhu Xian'er. Sister Zhu, this here is Ling Han, young Master Ling, but he has another more shocking identity. An Earth-grade alchemist." En. Zhu Xian'er was really shocked. Ling Han looked not even 20 years old. Which Earth-grade alchemist wasn't an old man or old lady in the 50s or 60s? Hunyao looked at Zhu Xian'er for a while and immediately revealed an expression as if guarding her food, climbing onto Ling Han's neck and saying, "Ling Han is Niu's." She expressed her sovereignty towards Zhu Xian'er and completely ignored Yin Lan, clearly thinking that this girl wouldn't be of threat to her. Zhu Xian'er had always been easygoing. Whether people liked her or disliked her, she wouldn't take it to heart. However, a 5 to 6-year-old little girl looked full of jealousy and challenged her, making her feel somewhat awkward. "Ha ha ha ha." Yin Lan laughed exaggeratingly, wantonly and with exceeding charm. She was naturally charming and didn't need to make a display of it. Each and every move of hers was filled with charm. After she cast an enchanting glance at Ling Han, she said, "Sister Zhu, you've been regarded as a rival." Zhu Xian'er looked at Hunyao again, revealing a astounded expression, because she found that she couldn't see through Hunyao at all. However, thinking again, a 5 to 6-year-old little girl wouldn't have awakened a spirit base, so she naturally had no cultivation. She couldn't see through Hunyao, because Hunyao wasn't a martial artist at all. Thinking so, she felt at ease. Ling Han sat down, while Hunyao knelt on his lap, looking at Zhu Xian'er provocatively. The little girl truly saw Zhu Xian'er as a rival. She had never been this serious in front of Liu Yutong and Li Sai-chan. "Lady Yin, why did you invite me here?" Ling Han said. "First drink and eat, we can talk over the meal." Yin Hong smiled. "Can young Master Ling still feel bored with two beauties like us as company?" Ling Han held the wine bowl and simply smiled slightly, unmoved by her exceeding charm, and said, "What is Lady Yin's position at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion?" She invited him in Spirit Treasures Pavilion's name. My father is Yin Shong, the pavilion master of North Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion, Yin Hong said casually. This was very surprising. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society were leviathans in the vast lands. Even if it was just a sub-branch in the North Region, the power they grasped was still surprising, not inferior to the sect masters of sect like the Winter Moon sect. He never would have thought that Yin Shong's daughter was actually so young. When did the old man have this daughter? Yin Hong went on, I have a favor to ask of young Master Ling. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and said, Lady Yin's the young mistress of the headquarters of North Region's Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Is there something that you can't do and need my help with? Yin Hong sighed faintly and said, every 5 years, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion will gather at the main branch and have a contest in alchemy, formations, and martial arts. However, only those under 30 years old can attend. The purpose is to select those who are worth investing in, and rate the managers of the 4 large sub-branches. Hearing her words, Ling Han already guessed her intentions, but he didn't interject, simply listening quietly. The North Region sub-branch has continued to be the last in the past 100 to 1,000 years. Yin Hong knitted her willowy brows, appearing extremely displeased. However, I truly don't think that there are no prodigies in the North Region. So, I plan on inviting young Master Ling as a welcome guest of the headquarters in the North Region to battle for us, traveling with me to the Middle State at the end of next year. Traveling to the Middle State? Ling Han had an epiphany. He certainly had the thought of going to the Middle State, but he had to take care of a few things: cure his father's spirit base, save his mother, and kill Ao Foam. After that, he could feel at ease and head off to Middle State. After all, the secret Zi Shuexian buried was in the Middle State. He looked at Zhu Xian'er and said, I am the alchemy representative and Lady Zhu is for martial arts. Then where's the formation representative? It's me. Yin Hong patted her chest, instantly causing a shocking ripple. Chapter 384, Provisos. Chapter 384, Provisos. Reverie _ Ling Han was astounded and said, Lady Yin is skilled in formations? He dabbled in formations in his previous life and learned mainly to break through all sorts of historic sites. Focused on unraveling formations, his formation-setting abilities weren't strong. However, it was said that in the ancient times, formations were a large branch that was on par with martial arts and alchemy. Several millennia ago, the status of formation masters was no lower than alchemy masters. A break-off in alchemy occurred millennia ago, but alchemy was almost completely destroyed in Ling Han's previous life. He never would have thought he would witness a person cultivating formations, which made Ling Han quite shocked. Haha, you looked down on me? Thinking that all I know is to give charming winks? Yin Hong said, carefree and not at all ashamed. This was simply her personality. Her charming face with her natural seductiveness were quite impressive, but it couldn't be helped she had a manly personality, speaking whatever she thought and knowing not what restraint was. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, Lady Yin is very interesting. I propose you a toast. Hee, I don't get drunk in 1,000 bowls. If young Master Ling wants to get me drunk and plot some bad things, then you'll only be disappointed. Yin Hong gladly drank the bowl of wine in a gulp, surprisingly bold. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a bit ill at ease. This woman was too straightforward. Did she not fear of making other people feel awkward? Young Master Ling is already a low-level Earth-grade alchemist at such a young age. No one can compare even in the Middle State. So, we can firmly take down the 30 points in alchemy. Sister Zhu's strength can't count as the finest in the Middle State, but fortunately, we still have half a year's time, enough for Sister Zhu to improve by several layers. I will fully assist her, making Sister Zhu reach at least the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Of course, if she can break through to the flower blossom tier, all the better. Then we would at least get 30 points out of the 40 in martial arts. Yin Hong paused, then went on, I'm a formation genius. The 30 points in this stage, taking 25 points definitely won't be hard. So the total points out of the 3 stages can reach above 85. The first place last time was only 85 points, so we have high hopes of taking first, she said, filled with confidence. Ling Han shrugged and said, Lady Yin, it's all your own wishful thinking. I don't recall accepting. Being able to fight alongside a woman of unmatched beauty like Sister Zhu, is young master still unwilling? Yin Hong said, pretending to be surprised. Ling Han simply laughed and said no more. Sly little fox. Yin Hong criticized as she spread her hands out, asking, all right, put forward whatever requests do you have. We of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion have money and all sorts of treasures. As long as it doesn't exceed our bottom line, I am in the position to give it to you. Ling Han waved his hands dismissively and said, no need to gift it. I want a spirit grass, and it's best if you can get it by the end of the year. Origin crystals are not a problem, I can pay accordingly. Yin Hong instantly clapped her hands and said with a smile, as expected of an earth-grade alchemist, rich and imposing, not even taking advantage of me given such a great chance. Zhu Xian'er's tolerance was bit surprising. She remained unmoved, no matter how Yin Hong teased her, as if a true fairy from the heavens. How could she be moved by mortal matters? Yin Han went on, what spirit grass does young Master Ling need? 9-leaf black Ganoderma, Ling Han said. 7th tier spirit grass shouldn't be a problem for the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, right? Yin Hong's beautiful face twitched. She said exaggeratingly, hey, that's a 7th tier spirit grass, even spiritual infant tier warriors would be moved. Our strongest cultivators in the North region are only in the spiritual infant tier. You have the nerve to say that it shouldn't be a problem? Ling Han shrugged and said, even if there is a problem, that's Lady Yin's problem. I've set forth my condition. As long as Lady Yin can bring me the 9-leaf black Ganoderma, I'll accept and attend the battle for the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Besides, I can take a step back. The 9-leaf Ganoderma doesn't have to reach maturity, but if it's not mature enough, I want a living one. Yin Hong looked at Ling Han with a strange gaze. The insinuation behind his words was somewhat shocking. It didn't matter if the medicine wasn't mature enough as long as it was alive. Could Ling Han possibly have a way of fostering spirit grass that could speed up its growth? This thought flashed by, but Yin Hong immediately shook her head. There was no way. From 6th tier onwards, all spirit grass and trees were like martial artists, surpassing mortals, and absolutely couldn't be fostered in a normal medicinal garden. Keeping it alive was quite difficult, not to mention speeding up its growth. She pondered, then said, all right, leave this matter to me. But even if I can really get it, the value of a 7th tier spirit grass is extremely shocking. Hopefully young Master Ling would be prepared. Ling Han cracked a smile. No matter. At the worst, I'll just refine some more medicinal pills. Yin Hong suddenly became speechless. The best group of moneymakers in the world were alchemists, and one outstanding alchemist. The ones who had high pill forming rate had terrifying money-making abilities. One batch of ingredients refined into medicinal pills was 10 times the profit, and they wouldn't have worry about not selling because of the large scale of martial artists. Since everyone's agreed, come, let's drink. Yin Hong said extremely boldly. Looking only at her appearance, one couldn't possibly think that such a charming lady was actually so manly in character. The four began to eat. Hunyo immediately stuck her tongue. The things here were too unpalatable. She took out the dried meats that had already been prepared from her spatial ring and began munching on it. The smell spread and instantly attracted Yin Hong's gaze. Her saliva almost drooled out. Even Zhu Xian'er couldn't help but swallow her saliva. In front of such delicacies, even fairies turned into mortals. Pretty little girl, give sister a piece, Yin Hong said unabashedly. Hunyo was stingy, glaring vigilantly at Yin Hong. Food was her life. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, No, don't be stingy, give the two sisters a taste. Hearing Ling Han say so, Hunyo reluctantly separated 2 small pieces and handed them over. Moreover, the piece that she gave to Zhu Xian'er was clearly a whole lot smaller. It was clear just how unhappy she was to see Zhu Xian'er. Yin Hong wouldn't be embarrassed. She immediately started to eat the dried meat. With a taste of it, she was enraptured, and her entire body began to tremble. The snacks for Hunyo weren't made from normal meat, but from the beasts fostered inside the Black Tower. There were very little, even Ling Han didn't eat it often. The taste was not only fresh, but also greatly beneficial to martial artists. After all, these beasts ate 100-year-old ginseng and Ganoderma all day, and it would be weird if it weren't rich in nutrition. Young Master Ling, How do you sell these meats? Set a price. I'll even sell my body, Yin Hong said. Chapter 385 Formation Master. 385 Formation Master. Reverie _ Pu. Ling Han instantly spurted out a mouthful of wine. This woman was so bold that it was a bit unbearable. Only a pervert like Jiu Fenghua could match her. Hearing Yin Hong say such a thing, Zhu Xian'er couldn't cover up her curiosity and picked up that small piece of meat on the table. She lifted the white gauze slightly, revealing her exceedingly beautiful red lips, and opened her mouth slowly. Her pearly white teeth were as if exquisite sculptures, stunningly beautiful. She placed the meat in her mouth and lowered the white gauze, chewing slowly. It instantly made one feel ceaseless regret, hoping to see it one more time. She didn't act as exaggerated as Yin Hong, but her gaze revealed extraordinary splendor from shock. Such delicacy was once in a lifetime, making her feel the urge to have another taste no matter the cost. She was Zhu Xian'er after all, and soon suppressed the urge and looked even-tempered once again. Rather than enjoyment, she still had a grave responsibility. Sister Zhu, you should just marry young Master Ling. Yin Hong's could help but speak teasingly. Look, young Master Ling is only 17 years old and is already a low-level Earth-grade alchemist. At this rate, he'll be a heaven-grade alchemist around 30 years old, and you can just find him to refine the pill. Besides, following him, there'll be such delicious food to eat, your entire life will be worth it. She laughed mischievously, looked flatteringly at Ling Han, and said, Young Master Ling, look, I got you a wife, why don't you give me some more of that dried meat? Those words instantly provoked two people, Zhu Xian'er and Hu Niu. Not so much Zhu Xian'er was an adult after with self-control, but her gaze became somewhat cold. Hu Niu had a hot temper. She immediately dove out from Ling Han's embrace, and Xiu, her small figure flashed and appeared before Yin Hong, waving her claws toward Yin Hong's chest. Hiss. The two girls were completely shocked. Hu Niu was actually an elite. She was extremely strange. Even Ling Han, who possessed a shred of heaven-tier divine consciousness, could no longer see through her at all, let alone the two girls. A spiritual ocean-tier expert suddenly attacked, and Yin Hong was absolutely unguarded. Chila, the clothes on her chest were instantly torn open. However, soon following, a white light flickered and formed a screen of light, blocking Hu Niu's little hands. Niu, stop! Ling Han hurriedly shouted. Hu Niu then flipped and landed back into Ling Han's embrace. Still in a bad mood, she scowled at Yin Hong. The white light on Yin Hong's chest dispersed, and because the clothes were torn, her snow-white skin could be seen indistinctly. However, what was surprising was that there were the vein-like lines on her skin, just like a tattoo. Formation marks. Ling Han had heaven-tier experience. His eyes immediately lit up, focusing his gaze on it. Formations were already waning and almost lost in his previous lifetime. Only coming across it when he visited historic sites, Ling Han only knew how to solve them, and the only formation he could set was a warning formation. However, in the ancient times, formation was lined up against martial arts and alchemy. Once formation masters attacked, they could trap tens and hundreds of martial artists of the same tier. The power of it was definitely there. He was very interested in formations, but placed all his energy on alchemy and had no time to delve into formations. Additionally, there were no formation masters he could ask for guidance, and no formation scrolls were left from the ancient times, so how could he learn it? Never would he have thought that he would really encounter a formation master. As expected of the blossoming of a prosperous martial arts age, not only were there freaks Rong Huanxian, Yang Tianzhao, Ma Juobao, and Hu Niu, but also the formation masters that long disappeared reappeared. Your eyes are so fixed on me. Why don't I take off my clothes and let you look to your heart's content? Yin Hong said, clenching her teeth. Although she had a faint smile, she emitted a dangerous presence. Ling Han didn't withdraw his gaze. He was not at all interested in Yin Hong's body, only looking at the formations on her body. He had seen quite a few formations in his previous life, but seeing formations that were carved on the body was a first. Formations, it's certainly a pretty good thing, Ling Han said. If you don't mind, take off your clothes and let me study it carefully. Get lost. Yin Hong hurriedly covered her chest and ran into the building to change into new clothes. Zhu Xian looked extremely surprised at Hu Niu. She couldn't see through Hu Niu, thinking that Hu Niu didn't cultivate at all. She never expected to judge so wrongly. Hu Niu not only awaked a spirit base, but also was a spiritual ocean tier cultivator. A 5 to 6 year old at the spiritual ocean tier. What did this mean? In comparison, her cultivation was not worth mentioning. The difference was way too large. In the martial arts world, all those below the flower blossom tier were nobody as mortals. However, it could be said that the preceding 5 tiers were relatively easy to attain, and no matter how young a spiritual pedestal tier warrior was, it wouldn't be strange. However, a 5 to 6 year old at the spiritual ocean tier? How could she not be shocked? Hu Niu's senses were extremely amazing. She immediately discovered Zhu Xian's gaze, then made a face at her, displaying intense enmity. Ling Han laughed, and said, "Lady Zhu, what do you need crimson red chilling icegrass for?" Zhu Xian was momentarily star-led, and said, "So you were there that day." She paused for a moment, then went on, "I need it to refine a heaven-grade medicinal pill, and crimson red chilling icegrass is one of the supplemental ingredients." Crimson red chilling icegrass could only act as supplemental ingredient. Well, that was a heaven-grade medicinal pill. Ling Han felt it strange, and said, "I heard your teacher has been possessed by the devil, but I think that medium-level, or at most high-level earth-grade medicinal pill can take care of it, no need for the heaven-grade ones." If another person were to say these words, Zhu Xian would definitely ignore them. However, Ling Han was a low-level earth-grade alchemist. Regarding actual status, he was far above her. Even the sect master of the Winter Moon sect would show respect when seeing Ling Han. She said, "My teacher received a Dao injury, and it can't be cured without a heaven-grade medicinal pill." Ling Han felt it even stranger, and said, "Your master's is at most a spiritual infant tier cultivator, so how could he possibly receive a Dao injury?" Dao injury, also known as injury of the Great Dao, was a backlash injury received when fathoming the power of heaven and earth. Only the shattering void tier warriors had the right to fathom heaven and earth, so naturally only they could receive Dao injuries. Other than that, the shattering void tier martial artists could invoke the power of heaven and earth. Enemies inflicted by it would also suffer a Dao injury. The problem was, if a shattering void tier warrior attacked, could someone with the strength of the spiritual infant tier only receive an injury? More probably, they should have died several hundred times. Zhu Xian shook her head and didn't answer. Obviously, this matter involved a secret. They simply had an intimate talk as mere acquaintances, so how could she reveal the bottom of it so easily? Ling Han didn't ask any further, but obviously, he and Zhu Xian would be competing against each other for that crimson red chilling ice grass. "Sorry, but I also need the crimson red chilling ice grass," he said. Zhu Xian immediately revealed a fierce enmity. This was the life-saving medicine for her teacher. Besides, the reason why she accepted to battle for Yin Hong was because Yin Hong promised to help her find the other main ingredients and head to the middle state to request a heaven-grade alchemist to refine the pill. Chapter 386 Exchange for Formations. Chapter 386 Exchange for Formations. Reverie _ Hu Niu revealed a vicious expression as well. Zhu Xian dared to direct killing intent at Ling Han, making the little girl instantly enter a battle stance. Her small figure sprung tightly, already prepared to attack. Ling Han pressed his hand on Hu Niu's shoulder, stopping her from being rash, and said, "Let me guess, there are 4 types of heaven-grade medicinal pills that can cure Dao injuries, but only Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck Pill needs crimson red chilling ice grass." Zhu Xian's pupils immediately narrowed. Ling Han was right, and she was collecting ingredients precisely to refine Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck Pill. Ling Han nodded, confirming his thoughts with her reaction, and went on, "The Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck Pill's main ingredients are 9 Dao Sound Heaven Fruit, 4 Elephant Heaven Wolf Grass, and Extreme Dark Dragon Emperor Fruit. The main ingredients can't be replaced, but the supplemental ingredients can. You're saying all this just to make me not compete with you for the crimson red chilling ice grass." Zhu Xian immediately saw through Ling Han's intentions. Ling Han laughed and said, "That's right. I'm not afraid of you, but seeing that we'll be fighting side by side in the future, I'm giving you an advice and a notice you won't be able to get it. However, you don't have to worry even if you don't get crimson red chilling icegrass, since the supplemental medicines can be exchanged. Master Ling, even if the crimson red chilling icegrass can be exchanged, just how many 7-tier spirit grasses are there in the world? Zhu Xian replied with a question. This crimson red chilling icegrass. I'm determined to have it. Ling Han shrugged his shoulders and said, then it'll be a match of our abilities. However, when I snatch it, don't snivel. Zhu Xian instantly wanted to roll her eyes. She wasn't a child and wouldn't snivel. She was a bit irritated inside. This was the first time she encountered someone who didn't care for her charm, making it somewhat hard for her to adapt. The second, of course, was Hu Niu with enmity all across her face, as if she would fight with her over Ling Han. Pa. Even if Ling Han was a heaven-grade alchemist, she would at most ask him to refine pills. As for liking him, impossible. Someone she would like should be a martial arts genius, and not a blockhead that only knew to refine pills. Yo, seems you guys were having a great talk. Did I come back at the wrong time? Yin Hong walked over, swinging her plump buttocks. With her naturally slender and supple waist, once she started walking, she was exceedingly seductive, which couldn't be concealed at all. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, not at all. Lady Yin, do you have any secret scrolls on formations that you can lend me for reference? Yin Hong rolled her eyes at Ling Han right away, and said, what do you think secret scrolls on formations are? You think I would let you use it for reference just because you said so? I can exchange using arts and techniques of a similar level, Ling Han said with justification. He didn't need to spend his thoughts on alchemy in his lifetime, and already had experience in martial arts simply treading over it again, so he had large amounts of time left over. Using it to learn formations was just right. He saw the power of Yin Hong's formations, which was even able to block Hu Niu's attack. This was quite out of the ordinary, which made him deeply interested. Besides, he would definitely enter all sorts of historic sites in the future, and if he was highly accomplished in formations, it would be extremely helpful. Moreover, the treasure troves and medicinal gardens of every sect were protected by formations. Blood-sucking origin gold could open the locks, but couldn't deal with formations. Yin Hong laughed mischievously and said, all right, if you can bring high-level arts or techniques, then I'll exchange with you. Sure. Ling Han had no intention of staying any longer and immediately said goodbye. He returned to pick some arts and skills to exchange for a few formations to study. It gave him something to do before he ventured into the dark demon forest. He left with Hu Niu, and the courtyard was suddenly left with Zhu Xian and Yin Hong. This guy is truly a weirdo. Ignoring my charm isn't a big deal, but even ignoring you. Could he be a eunuch? Yin Hong said, baffled. Zhu Xian instantly turned red all across the face and said, Sister Hong, you're shooting your mouth off again. So the two girls already knew each other. It wasn't strange. Zhu Xian sought to find the materials for refining the hidden tiger heavenly luck pill, and the fastest way was through the spirit treasures pavilion. So, Zhu Xian and Yin Hong knowing each other was naturally very normal. However, you can really consider it. This guy truly has the possibility of becoming a heaven-grade alchemist before 30 years old. That would be equivalent to a mighty shattering void tier warrior, and with his help, finding those main ingredients would be much easier. Otherwise, a 9th tier spirit grass, a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator like you can't possibly obtain it, Yin Hong said again. Zhu Xian sighed. The supplemental medicines were not a problem, but the 3 main medicines would really drive her to death. And what did she have? Unmatched looks. Would she have to exchange for them with her body? After Ling Han returned to the inn, he immediately entered the Black Tower, searching through his mind for suitable arts and techniques. Inside the Black Tower, he was almost omnipotent. Reviving the dead was obviously undoable. Hundreds of charcoal pens moved and sheets of silk paper floated in the air. With a zhi, there were several rows of writing on the silk papers. With only one night's effort, Ling Han already wrote 100 volumes of arts and techniques. Should be enough. He smiled slightly and left the tower, heading to the Spirit Treasures Pavilion again. Young Master Ling, you've returned so quickly. Is it because you still want to see Sister Zhu? Unfortunately, She left early in the morning and headed to the dark demon forest, Yin Hong said with a smile. Ling also smiled and said, I came here just to see Lady Yin. What's to see about me? I'm not even 1/100th the beauty of Sister Zhu. I have some arts and techniques. Have a look and see how many formations it can exchange for. Ling Han threw out the 10 volumes of arts and techniques. Yin Hong no longer jested, picking up an art and swept a glance, instantly revealing a shocked expression. She said, Earth-grade art. She continued to pick up other books to read, and her charming face continued to change colors. These were not only Earth-grade arts, but also those of different elements, suited for people of all sorts of spirit bases, which was very hard to come by. Young Master Ling is truly a person of extraordinary talent. She sighed in exclamation. Ling Han laughed and said, Some people asked me to refine pills but couldn't pay the price, so they could only use arts to make up the numbers. This was the truth, but also things that happened in his previous life. For example, he demanded the 3 styles of black origin and wore Elephant Fist from Sword Emperor and Na Lan too. Since young Master Ling is so straightforward, then it would be rude of me to keep hiding things. Yin Hong wiped the table with her right hand, and instantly 3 ancient records appeared. These books were definitely not made of normal materials as the books each emitted an ancient presence. Ling Han picked them up to read. Written separately on the 3 books were, Formation Basics Introduction, Formation Basics Introduction and Formation Basics Introduction. He shook his head and said, Lady Yin, I've taken out 10 Earth-grade arts, yet you give me 3 books on Formation Basics. Yin Hong giggled, throwing out another book, and said, I'll add this small heavenly origin spirit snake formation, but no more, or else I'd rather not exchange. That's more like it. Ling Han picked up the book Small Heavenly Origin Spirit Snake Formation, revealing a smile. Chapter 387, Studying Formations. Chapter 387, Studying Formations. Reverie _ Although Ling Han wrote several hundred books on arts and techniques, he had no intention of giving out them all. The 3 formation basics and on top of that 1 branch of formation was enough to study intensively for a while. So, he decided to leave and head to the dark demon forest. Bringing Hu Niu, he hired a carriage since the journey would take over 10 days. It was better to hire a carriage to serve as transport. Inside the carriage, Hu Niu relished and nibbled on the dried meat while Ling Han took out the formation basics and began flipping through it. Very soon, he revealed an awed expression. Martial arts were a process of cultivating oneself, viewing the human body as a large treasure and excavating the endless potential within. There was a saying in the martial arts world, one man, one world. It meant that when martial arts were cultivated to the extreme, a martial artist oneself could become an enormous world, possessing supreme power. Formations were exactly the opposite. This path revered the natural power of heaven and earth. It purported to be borrowing the power of heaven and earth and changing it for personal use. Therefore, the key was how to borrow the power of heaven and earth. A medium was needed to borrow the power of heaven and earth, called the formation's eye. A formation's eye could appear in all shapes and forms, such as a sword, a saber, or a flag. However, not just any sword, rock, or flag could serve as the formation's eye. There were still very strict requirements. First, the material's quality, and second, the formation patterns carved on it. The one who compiled this book on formations liked to use flags as the formation's eye, and called them formation flags. Formation flags were like martial arts, separated into 10 tiers, and formations arrayed by different tiers of formation flags had differing powers. High-tier formation flags could be used to array low-tier formations, but not the other way around. High-level formations had to be set by high-tier formation flags, otherwise, the formation flags couldn't possibly endure the power of heaven and earth drawn in, instantly exploding. Thus, effective tools were necessary for the successful execution of a job. Only by finding the suitable materials and making them into formation flags or using other formations could one begin to discuss how to array the formation. Ling Han was eager to give it a try. When they passed by a large city, he spent 30,000 origin crystals and bought a chunk of purple-veined gold, which was an extremely high cost for about £1. This was a 5th tier cast metal, which could be forged into spiritual ocean tier level spirit tools. Of course it would be expensive. Thankfully, it was only a little over 1 pound, not enough to be formed into a sword, saber, or other weapons, or else 30,000 origin crystals wouldn't be enough. Ling Han immediately entered the Black Tower. Inside, he could summon raging flames and easily melt the chunk of precious gold into 7 small metal poles. Since he lacked the materials, he didn't make it into a formation flag. It was more important to carve the formation patterns, and as for what form the formations I had, it made no difference. This was the first step. The second step was to carve formation patterns on the metal poles. This was the most crucial step. Formation patterns drew in the power of heaven and earth, so the effects were completely different based on the element of the formation pattern and the type of formation arrayed. Ling Han forged 7 metal rods fastidiously based on small heavenly origin spirit snake formation. Once he carved the formation patterns onto it, it could become a true formation's eye. He would then be able to spread it beside him and the formation would become complete by itself, having both defensive and offensive effects. The problem was, how would he carve the formation patterns onto the poles? This wasn't drawing, completed just by following the design. Formations could draw in the power of heaven and earth because it was a sort of understanding, like martial intent. You either understood it or you didn't. There was no third option. If he wanted to brand the formation patterns onto metal, he first had to understand the formation. Therefore, the people who understood it deeply were high-level formation masters, and the people who understood it superficially were low-level formation masters. Ling Han studied all sorts of formations in his previous life. Of course, he studied how to overcome them, in other words, the loopholes in the formations. This could be referenced, not to mention that he possessed the divine sense and martial arts comprehension of the heaven tier. Turning around to study low-level formations was truly too easy. He kept exclaiming from realizations, advancing fiercely on formations. 5 days later, he threw aside the 3 formation basics introduction books and picked up a rock, carving formation patterns on it. Every formation pattern had to be carved in one go, completed without a pause. If it weren't smooth, it would affect the activation of heaven and earth's power. One could make at most 3 pauses in drawing the formation's eye, or else it would be worthless. For a 4th tier formation's eye, the minimum of formation patterns carved was 9 and the maximum was 15, all of which had to be squeezed onto a small metal rod. Small heavenly origin spirit snake formation needed to use 7 formations eyes to arrange, each limited to 15 formation patterns. Amongst 4th level formations it could be considered of high quality, and speaking from this point, Yin Hong was quite fair. Ling Han began to carve formation patterns. After he carved 15 formation patterns on a rock, he carefully examined it, finding that at least 8 were wrong. Moreover, those that weren't wrong had several pauses. It was all right. He didn't count on becoming a formation master all of a sudden. He'd progress slowly. On the 11th day since departing from the extreme Yang city, Ling Han finally arrived at the outskirts of the Dark Demon Forest. The coachman was unwilling to go further, and after Ling Han came off the carriage, the former immediately whipped the horse and left in a hurry. This was an extremely chaotic place. No single force occupied it, but of all places, this place was rich in spirit grass, attracting large amounts of forces to enter and harvest medicine. Under the massive profitability, conflicts broke out, often spilling blood and killing were more than ordinary occurrences. The Dark Demon Forest had no hegemon, but there were 4 relatively strong forces. Since they developed from within the Dark Demon Forest, they were like the local tyrants, and even large forces like the Winter Moon Sect and the Beast Emperor Sect wouldn't provoke them. These 4 forces were Bloodlight House, Heavenly Silkworm Court, Devour Bone Court, and Gust Demon Clan, all of which were said to have Flower Blossom tier elites backing them up. Other than the large forces, there were many medium and small-scale forces that sought survival in the crevices, even desiring to replace the 4 large forces. It was rumored that many medium-scale forces even received the support of a grand sect like Winter Moon Sect, but whether it was real or fake, no one could say clearly. The 4 large forces had many campsites open to the public within the Dark Demon Forest. These sites were equivalent to ramparts, providing protection for martial artists that gathered medicine. However, they were definitely not philanthropists. Those who wanted to enter the campsite had to pay money, which of course meant origin crystals, which could also be replaced with spirit grasses and tool refining materials. In the campsite, no one was to use force. This was the most basic rule. Once outside, you could fight till heads flew wildly and it wouldn't matter. Ling Han walked arbitrarily as all his thoughts were on formations. After studying for 10 days, he had a strong interest in formations, which, when combined with martial arts, could unleash an incredible effect. In reality, formations were closely tied with every martial artist. The simplest example would be spirit tools, which actually belonged to the area of formations. Branding one's martial intent on it was the most coarse formation pattern. However, if actual formations patterns were branded on a spirit tool, combining the two, the power unleashed was naturally stronger. Fellow brother, if you're alone, why not join us? He walked slowly and was soon passed by a team when one of the members offered him an olive branch. Chapter 388, Targeted. Chapter 388, Targeted. Reverie _ Eden, watch out, this is chapter 390, so if it ends up published right after 387, know that 388 and 389 come after this one. Maybe we'll be able to fix it or it'll fix itself, but I'm leaving you folks a heads up in case that doesn't happen. The conditions in the stronghold were harsh, there weren't any good lodgings. It was simply a room made of bamboo, and not to mention the terrible soundproofing effects, there was even a crack where others could peep through. Ling Han didn't really care, since it was only for 2 nights anyways. After he left, the news of him being a foolishly rich person spread and everyone wanted to receive treasure ginsengs as reward, heading out to inquire one after another. There wasn't much hope within this stronghold and everyone knew of Ling Han's bounty, so some went to the next stronghold to check out the situation. However, some people harbored killing intent as well, waiting for Ling Han to leave the stronghold so that they could kill him and seize his goods. He was only a youngster at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. How strong could he be? He looked like a delicate flower grown inside a greenhouse, and his battle prowess was probably not even 4 stars. At night, a medicinal harvesting team of 20 entered the stronghold. It was exactly the party with the red-clothed woman whom Ling Han came into conflict with. They came to the northwestern corner of the stronghold. The harvesters crammed into one large bamboo room and the guards also crammed into one, but the red-clothed woman entered a single-person bamboo room, where a 30-year-old man already waited for her. Wan Qing. The man heard knocking, and when he saw the red-clothed woman, he couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. His eyes burned with desire as he pulled her into his embrace, unable to restrain from getting fresh. Naughty, haven't you touched enough? So impatient. The red-clothed woman, Wan Qing, swung her hips, teasing the other person. The man was also surnamed Ding Gao Yang. He was from the same family as Wan Qing. However, their bloodlines were extremely distant, far beyond 5 generations of ancestors, so they weren't forbidden from marriage. However, Ding Gao Yang already had a wife, so the two were obviously carrying on an affair. The two ultimately didn't have their happy time. After all, the soundproofing was terrible, and Wan Qing wasn't a chicken with no sense of shame. Brother Gao Yang, have you seen a youngster about 17 or 18, half a head taller than me, with very white skin like a young master in the stronghold today? Wan Qing lay in Ding Gao Yang's embrace and began to ask about Ling Han. She was slapped, which was something could absolutely not tolerate. How do you know him? Ding Gao Yang naturally knew the bounty Ling Han issued in the day and immediately connected the two people together. He really is here. Wan Qing instantly revealed an ominous glint. Don't rush, tell me everything from start to end, Ding Gao Yang hurriedly said. He knew Ling Han possessed great wealth. As long as Ling Han stayed in the safety area, Ling Han could stir up great commotion. Wan Qing spoke about what happened in the day. She naturally put all the blame on Ling Han, saying how domineering he was without mentioning at all how cheap her mouth was. After she finished talking, Ding Gao Yang couldn't help but snort and said, "What a daring brat, hitting my little sister Wan Qing. Brother Gao Winag, you have to do me justice," Wan Qing said in a sweet voice. Ding Gao Yang nodded, and immediately went on, This matter needs to be considered at length. This youngster knocked 7 of your guards flying. Such battle prowess is extremely terrifying. Even I can only be ashamed of being inferior. Then what do we do? Am I just going to take that slap for nothing? Ding Wn Wing almost threw a tantrum. Ding Jiao Yang hugged her tightly and said, "Don't worry, I'll ask a spiritual pedestal tier elite to attack. Taking him down would be more than enough. Even if that fails, my brother is training out here. He placed 66th on the previous term's prodigy roll and is now at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. I'll immediately have someone contact him and have him come over. If clan brother Yuan Xin steps in, then there'll be absolutely no chance of failure," Ding Wan Qing said. In reality, wasn't it for a great tree like Yuan Xin that she got in bed with Ding Jiao Yang? This was the most remarkable clansman in the history of the Ding family. He was now only 37 years old but already at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ding Jiao Yang laughed coldly. Ling Han was probably a descendant of some alchemist family. That was why he had so many treasure ginsengs on him and reached the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at such a young age. However, this was the dark demon forced. All backgrounds were useless here. The things on this kid were all his. Ling Han stayed for a night. On the second day, he continued to seek information on the Dark Demon Forest. The reason why the Dark Demon Forest had such a name was firstly because the environment here was very gloomy, with dark hanging over for many years, and secondly because there was dark fog everywhere, making the entire forest appear gloomier. That fog was like demonic chi, affecting the hearts of people and beasts. There were many cases of people going mad after spending too long in them. And thus came the name of the Dark Demon Forest. Demonic chi enveloped the entire forest, but the further from the middle of the forest, the less dense the demonic chi was. The effects on living things were minuscule, but it still had its effects, making people and beasts more bellicose. At the core area of the forest, the demonic chi was terrifying, easily turning a person into a lunatic. However, if one didn't have enough strength, one couldn't possibly enter the depths and would have long been torn to shreds by crazy yet strong beasts. It could be said that the most scary thing in the Dark Demon Forest wasn't a martial artist or a beast, but the demonic chi. Ling Han didn't fear it as he had the Black Tower. At that time, even Azura Demon Emperor's demonic chi could easily be cleansed. The demonic chi here should be far inferior. Anyways, with Black Tower at hand, he was very much at ease. When it was noon, someone came to visit Ling Han. It was a 30-year-old man who didn't announce his surname. Ling Han, of course, thought it was nothing out of the ordinary. The man told him of a location that extremely conformed with his requirements of the cold and the heat's intertwinement. After Ling Han paid 10 treasure ginsengs, he decided to set out. He knew his wealth attracted the covetous eyes of many, but he didn't care. The strongest cultivator outside the stronghold was only at the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Now, the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier really wasn't much in Ling Han's eyes. He wouldn't even need to use his trump card to kill an expert at such a level. Ling Han departed. Once he left, half of the people in entire stronghold seemed to have left too. Their intentions could easily be guessed at if one wasn't stupid. Why did Ling Han search for a place where the cold and heat intertwined? Because crimson-red chilling ice grass only grew at such places, and this spirit grass had the two special qualities of cold and heat. The more severely cold and the more torridly hot it was nearby, the better the crimson-red chilling ice grass grew and the more mature it could become. Hunyo was bored from staying inside the Black Tower, so Ling Han found a remote place to let her out. Soon, an adult and a child holding hands were going for a stroll inside the forest, as if it weren't the extremely vicious and sinister Dark Demon Forest, but just a normal small forest. However, this harmony was soon broken. "Youngster, stop." 5 people suddenly appeared in front, each one revealing a ferocious look. Shaw. 5 more people came out from behind, preventing Ling Han's retreat. Ling Han was shocked, because amongst those who blocked his path in front was the brawny man who tricked him of 1 origin crystal, later had a bounty placed by him, and at last begged him for forgiveness. He couldn't help but laugh and said, "You really remain unrepentant to the end. Is it uncomfortable to be alive?" Chapter 389, A Minor Conflict. Chapter 389, A Minor Conflict. Reverie _ This was a medicine harvesting team's even martial artists as guards along with 12 medicinal farmers who carried bamboo baskets on their backs. There was also a beautiful red-clothed woman who looked like their employer. There were 20 people in total. Such a medicine harvesting team in the Dark Demon Forest could only be considered a small-scale team. There were 100 and even 1,000 people medicine harvesting teams here as well. Ling Han's gaze swept by. The 7 guards were at the spiritual ocean tier, quite an impressive strength. The one who invitated him was a 40-year-old brawny man, tall and sturdy, with arms thicker than Ling Han's waist and shockingly well-defined muscles. Without waiting for Ling Han to reply, somewhat displeased, the red-clothed woman spoke, "Guard Wu, if you want to invite someone into the team, why not seek for my opinion first?" The brawny man laughed loudly and said, "It was already agreed upon when we left that we were going to recruit 10 guards, and now we've only recruited 7. I, as the guard squad captain, naturally have the right to recruit people. So the other people aren't qualified," the red-clothed woman said. "He qualifies." The brawny man pointed at Ling Han. "The 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, is that not enough?" What? This young man was actually at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier? The other people were shocked, feeling that Ling Han was just too young. "Lady Ding, let him join the team." "Yeah, the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier isn't weak." The other guards all began to urge. Although the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier certainly wasn't high in terms of cultivation, entering this level in the teens clearly meant something. What? The fact that Ling Han's background was extremely remarkable. Although it was an extremely chaotic place, if there was someone of the Winter Moon sect or the Half Moon sect around, then it could be life-saving at key moments. Thus, these people naturally wouldn't refuse Ling Han joining and adding her insurance to their lives. The red-clothed woman pondered, and said, "All right, but Guard Wu, you have to be responsible for keeping him out of trouble." "Deal." The brawn man laughed as he nodded, then cracked a smile at Ling Han and said, "Little brother, how about it? One day for 1 origin crystal, you won't encounter such a good job every day." Spiritual ocean tier warriors could only refine 1 origin crystal per month, and now obtaining 1 per day, the treatment was certainly not bad. Ling Han broke into laughter and said, "You guys have been speaking of your own accord. I don't remember saying that I wanted to join you guys, right? You've got an objection?" The red-clothed woman wasn't too happy to begin with. Hearing that Ling Han refused to join the team, she appeared even more displeased all of a sudden. "Such great nerve, slap him." Ling Han shook his head. He felt that he was truly unjustly attacked while walking down the road properly without provoking anyone. How did misfortune come upon him? Could he really have a troublesome constitution, attracting trouble wherever he went? "You think I'm easy to bully?" He was angered and raised his hand, lashing towards the red-clothed woman. "Stop." The 7 guards shouted at once and intervened one after another, blocking Ling Han. These people's tiers had highs and lows, but the worst was at the 6th layer and the strongest at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, none of them had battle prowess surpassing their own tier after all. Most people were very ordinary. Ling Han smiled lightly as sword intent instantly burst forth. Xiao, 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 7 flashes of sword chi shot out, slicing towards the 7 guards. What battle prowess did he have? When he was at the 1st layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he had 16 stars, and now it rocketed to 20 stars. Surpassing the other party's strongest person by 11 stars of battle prowess, this was definitely overwhelming. The 7 guards struck by the 7 flashes of sword chi were sent flying at the same time. Fortunately, Ling Han held back, merely opening a small wound on their chests. Otherwise, this attack would have taken their lives. The red-clothed woman was slapped right on the face, whipping out 3 of her teeth. "Don't always look at people with that condescending look. This slap is a small lesson for you. If there's a next time, I'll take your life," Ling Han said coldly. The red-clothed woman clenched her teeth with an expression of disbelief. First, Ling Han was only at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier and actually sent 7 of her guards flying, and second, this guy actually dared to hit her. She was a daughter of the Ding family and looked beautiful as a flower. Was this guy blind? Even more, how ruthless was he to hit a beautiful face such as hers? Ling Han turned to leave. Whether it was the 7 guards or the medicinal farmers, they all stayed quiet without making a sound. Ling Han's strength was so far beyond their imagination that they hadn't come back to their sense even till now. A bunch of good-for-nothings, the red-clothed woman reprimanded angrily, covering her dainty swollen face, and said, "Hurry to Rising Wind Stronghold. Jiao Yang Clan's brother is there, ask him to handle that damned brat. Lady Ding, that youngster has the cultivation of the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier at such a young age, and his battle prowess is even more shocking. He must have strong background, so why not let this go?" the brawny man surnamed Wu advised. Since he was the one who spoke of recruiting Ling Han, he felt somewhat responsible. "Mph, in the Dark Demon Forest, so what if he has a strong background? It'll be useless if he dies here." The red-clothed woman's gaze was with resentment. She couldn't stomach this insult. "Go." The team continued to advance. Walking for half a day, a stronghold appeared in front of Ling Han. This was Gust Demon Clan's territory, a place providing temporary shelter for martial artists. Ling Han also wanted to inquire about crimson red chilling icegrass, so he entered the stronghold, the price for which was 1 origin crystal. The stronghold wasn't large, it had the area of a small village. The surrounding sturdy trees were made into a barricade, but the houses inside were made of bamboo, boasting extremely poor soundproofing and privacy. There were truly people of all trades here. Ling Han saw several girls dressed revealingly standing by the roadside, shooting coquettish glances at passers-by. If they liked what they saw, they'd get together and leave. Soon, groans and moans, which made people's blood vessels swell, would come from the bamboo houses. For martial artists, after experiencing an intense adventure, they naturally hoped to relax a little. Where there was need, there would be market, even if it was a dangerous place such as the Dark Demon Forest. The most ancient profession thrived. As Ling Han walked by, quite a few of these girls tried to entice him, but he paid them no attention, walking straight to a tavern. He ordered a few things, but was mostly here to ask around. "Hey, have you guys heard the renowned fairy Zhu came here several days ago?" "What? Zhu Xian, the one known as the most beautiful woman in the North region? Is she really that beautiful?" "Far more, as I see it, she should be called most beautiful in the world. But, since she dares enter the Dark Demon Forest, is she not afraid of being like a lamb in a tiger's den? Hee, who knows how many people want to take this beauty for their private pet. Besides, this is the Dark Demon Forest. If someone falls into enemy hands here, even the Half-Moon sect can't do a thing. You don't have a share, anyways." "Pa, neither do you." Hearing everyone's conversations, Ling Han shook his head. Zhu Xian was only a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator. If she encountered a flower blossom tier, she wouldn't even have the chance to run away. It was surprising she dared to come here alone. He held up his wine cup, approaching a table with 3 people, and said, "3 fellow brothers, I've got something to ask of you guys. Is there a place here where the cold and hot intertwine?" Chapter 390, You're Tricking Me. Chapter 390, You're Tricking Me. Reverie _ Youngster, you just came to the Demon Forest, right? A 30-year-old brawny man said with a smile to Ling Han. "Yes." Ling Han nodded. This could be told with one glance. Other people all reeked with an intense muddy smell, which was from being exposed in the forest during day and night. The brawny man laughed quietly, reaching out his hand, and said, "Here, everything is a deal. If you want to ask questions, you have to give people benefits." "How much?" Ling Han smiled lightly. His wallet was now bulging again, so he naturally was more indifferent to origin crystal. 1 origin crystal. The brawn man put up a finger. 1 question for 1 origin crystal, so shady. Ling Han didn't really care, as long as he could find crimson red chilling icegrass, even if he paid 1,000,000 origin crystals for it, he wouldn't feel regret. He handed over 1 origin crystal at once. The brawny man took the origin crystal and suppressed a laugh. "Time to answer the question." Ling Han knocked on the table. "All right." The brawny man nodded and said, "I don't know." Ling Han's gaze immediately turned sharp and said, "You're tricking me? Youngster, I'm teaching you a lesson. Grow up a bit when you're out in the world, don't believe people so easily." The brawny man laughed, not worried at all that Ling Han might attack him. Because this was Gust Demon Clan's territory, if Ling Han dared to use violence here, he would be driven out, and at worst killed. Otherwise, this place wouldn't be a safe refuge. It was said that strongholds like this even had many notoriously vicious wanted criminals who ran here from being chased by sects like the Winter Moon sect and the Beast Emperor sect. However, they didn't dare to use violence inside the stronghold. It was clear just how domineering the four large forces were here. Ling Han took the man's arrogance all in and casually waved his hand on the table. Instantly 10 ginsengs appeared on the table, each one was as thick as an arm, the roots as muscular as a dragon. Hiss. As people saw this, they stared with wide round eyes. These were at least 200 to 300-year-old precious ginsengs. Inside the dark demon forest, there indeed were some precious ginsengs like this, but one needed to enter the core area of the forest. Since it was too dangerous there, not to mention that no one usually entered it, even the beasts were very scarce, so there were large mounts of spirit medicines with surprisingly maturity. Such a precious ginseng would easily sell for several dozens of origin crystals, 10 of which was worth several hundred origin crystals. This was a large fortune. If spiritual ocean tier warriors didn't steal or rob it, they would need at least a dozen years to refine it. At that moment, people's breathing sped up and their eyes turned red, itching to snatch it. Ling Han smiled lightly. Pointing at the brawny man from earlier, he said, "These ginseng will belong to whoever kills him." Instantly, all eyes were on that brawny man. This man was only at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Annihilating him wouldn't be much harder than the flip of a palm for late-stage spiritual ocean tier martial artists. Where would one find a business that paid several hundred origin crystals for just lifting a finger? Moreover, 100-year-old ginsengs were greatly tonic. Normal medicinal pills couldn't heal the hidden injuries that were inevitably left after these martial artists fought with people and beasts. Only such great tonics could heal them completely. Such a treasure might come by with luck, but not through searching. "Youngster, violence can't be used inside the stronghold," someone said. Ling Han smiled and said, "No matter, you guys just keep an eye. Although I will leave soon after, I'll place the 10 ginsengs with the stronghold master. Whoever kills him can get it from the stronghold master. Is everyone reassured now?" "Okay. That works." Everyone nodded. There were certainly people who issued missions inside the stronghold, asking for people's help. However, as it happened through the Gust Demon Clan, there was an inevitable rake-off. Therefore, everyone hoped that the brawny man left the stronghold soon. Killing him without delay, they received the reward from Ling Han directly. This way, they could avoid losing part of the reward to the Gust Demon Clan. The brawny man's face turned green. Never would he have thought that tricking one origin crystal from Ling Han would result in him being possibly killed. He hurriedly took out the origin crystal as if a hot potato and threw it towards Ling Han. "I don't want your origin crystal, hurry up and withdraw your bounty." Which family's spoiled second generation was this, wasting precious ginsengs like this? Did his mother know that he was this kick-ass? Ling Han didn't catch it and said, "Take it, it'll be just enough to order a good casket." The brawny man was on the verge of crying from fear. He only wanted to take a small advantage of him, but who could have thought that it would attract a deadly misfortune? He hurriedly dropped to the ground and knelt down facing Ling Han, then said, "Little lord, I was wrong, please forgive me." "You really know your wrongs?" Ling Han smiled. "I really do." The brawny man kept slapping himself in the face, one slap after another with a lot of force, such that blood even came out. Ling Han nodded, and said, "All right, this bounty is cancelled." Instantly, the brawny man gasped in relief, but the other people were dissatisfied, feeling they were messed with. There weren't many people here who were amiable. Many of them stared at Ling Han with an ominous glint, and once Ling Han left the stronghold, Ling Han was unperturbed, and said, "The bounty just now is cancelled," and changed to a new one. "Whoever knows, tell me where in the forest do the cold and hot intertwiny these 10 precious ginsengs will be theirs. For real." People's expressions turned back to pleasantly surprised ones. Ling Han nodded and said, "Of course it's for real. However, if anyone takes me for a fool and mentions a random place, then I won't mind issuing another bounty for that person." People clicked their tongues. The brawny man only tricked Ling Han out of 1 origin crystal, and yet the latter issued a bounty of 10 treasure ginsengs. If one tricked Ling Han out of 10 treasure ginsengs, then what price tag would Ling Han offer for that bounty? Such a spoiled second generation was truly scary rich, and thus intractable. For a moment, people were silent. Some who thought of deceiving were really frightened. "This young lord, I know a place that suits your description." After a while, a person spoke up. He spoke of a place in the northwest part of Dark Demon Forest and gave Ling Han a map, clearly labeling the location. Ling Han inquired carefully, but was very disappointed. It certainly was a place where the cold and hot intertwined, but it was far too different from his requirements. However, to show his sincerity, he still gave the person 10 treasure ginsengs to establish his credibility. Anyone else that knows of such a place, 1 clue for 10 treasure ginsengs. Ling Han waved his hand and took out 10 more 100-year-old ginsengs. This thing was like cabbage to him anyways. Someone received a reward. This instantly excited many others. Even those who were looking on wanted to have a try. If they personally didn't know, it didn't matter. Cold and tea, they ask around. "I'll be staying here for 2 days. If anyone has news, come find me," Ling Han said for all to hear, and left the tavern, renting a guest room. Chapter 391, A Clean Sweep. Chapter 391, A Clean Sweep. Reverie _ That damned guy. The brawny man was called Pu Chuan and was at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Such strength wasn't weak, could come and go freely just about anywhere with it, and was barely qualified to be called an elite. However, he had been forced by Ling Han to kneel down and beg for forgiveness in the public's eye. Just how humiliating was that? Such a grievance on top of coveting the belongings on Ling Han meant he couldn't possibly stare blankly and let Ling Han leave. The battle prowess of a spoiled second generation at a mere 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier was definitely not past 4 stars. Even if he wasn't a match for him alone, there were still 9 other people, weren't there? "Youngster, hand over the spatial ring obediently and we can let you live," another person said. This was obviously a lie. After they took the spatial ring, they'd commit murder. Ling Han laughed and said to Hu Nyo, "Nyo, do you think I'm an idiot?" Ling Han obviously isn't an idiot. Ling Han is a smart person. Hu Nyo said hurriedly and patted her small chest, adding, "Hu Nyo is also a smart person. Hehe, but some people just want to trick me like I'm a monkey." Ling Han shook his head. Hu Nyo instantly revealed an ominous glint, and said, "Nyo will bite them all to death." Nyo, don't kill people with your mouth, it's too dirty." Ling Han rubbed her small head. Hu Nyo nodded repeatedly at once. Although she didn't think biting people to death was dirty, Ling Han didn't like it, so she would avoid doing so. "You guys done yet?" Pu Chuan and the 9 others were infuriated after being mocked by an adult and a child. However, what was strange was that they didn't see that little girl yesterday, right? She probably followed him into the stronghold and always stayed inside the bamboo room. Everyone soon understood. Since he won't listen, then kill him in case of undue trouble. Pu Chuan and the others clamored. There were many groups in the entire stronghold that conspired against Ling Han, so naturally it was best to strike first lest other people got ahead. "Let me." Pu Chuan immediately jumped out. With a cheong, he unsheathed a long saber, striking towards Ling Han. Hu Nyo made a move, and she leapt overhead of Pu Chuan. With a pa, she fired her small fist at him. Instantly, Pu Chuan's head actually spun around his neck 7 to 8 times and the skin on the neck was twisted off. A perfectly fine head instantly fell down, and blood rushed 10 feet high as if a blood fountain, finally falling back down rapidly. Martial artists were full of chi and blood, especially those in the spiritual ocean tier. After his head fell off, he didn't immediately die, still prancing around for a while before finally thumping onto the ground, hands and legs still twitching. Hiss. How was this possible? Despite Pu Chuan having the cultivation of the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he was killed with a single punch. And the one who attacked was a 5 to 6 year old little girl. Who could believe this? Who? Hunyo bared her teeth and roared, striking once again. Pa, 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 pa. Each of her punches took care of one person, rapidly reaping their lives. With her terrifying high speed, even a spiritual pedestal tier warrior would have a headache, let alone spiritual ocean tier ones. Run. 10 people instantly turned into 3 remaining, all of them breaking into a run, but competing in speed with Hunyo? Truly laughable. Within a mere 2 breaths, the 3 people all had their hearts blasted by a single punch. 10 people completely annihilated. Hunyo hadn't had enough as she turned her fierce gaze behind. Her divine consciousness was extremely sensitive, easily capable discovering that there were more people behind. However, it was too far, she couldn't find exactly where these people were in that moment. Run. These people clearly saw that a young lady killed 10 spiritual ocean tier warriors in a clean sweep. Such battle prowess was completely freakish. They didn't want to throw away their lives, running hurriedly towards the stronghold. Ling Han only laughed, but didn't chase after them for an open slaughter. Let's go. He held on to Hunyo's hand, continuing onwards. Truly out of the ordinary. On a large tree afar, a 60-year-old man focused his gaze on the entire process. Ding Jiao-yang, not only is that youngster a freak, but so is that young lady. That speed, TSK, extremely surprising. Behind the old man stood Ding Jiao-yang and WN Qing, both appearing very respectful. Elder Mo, you're a spiritual pedestal tier elite. No matter how freakish they wouldn't be your match. Ding Jiao-yang bootlicked hurriedly. Elder Mo felt pleased, revealing a smile. He said, dealing with 2 spiritual ocean tier opponents, the price tag won't the previous only it has to double. Ding Jiao-yang instantly revealed a pained expression. Could asking a spiritual pedestal tier elite to take on a task be cheap? Now it just had to be doubled. He only hoped that the belongings on Ling Han were worth that price, otherwise he'd suffer a tremendous loss. Elder Mo looked at WN Qing once more, revealing a perverted expression, and said, and, let WN Qing stay over at this old man's tonight for a night. Ding Jiao-yang immediately jumped in anger. This old man had gone too far, still coveting his woman. He snorted and said, Elder Mo, don't you take it too far, and don't forget who my brother is. Elder Mo involuntarily shivered inside. Shin was a figure on the previous prodigy roll, and his rank wasn't low, either. Those who could ascend onto the roll would definitely reach the flower blossom tier as long as they didn't die. There was never an exception. This was the dark demon forest, where fists were words. If he offended Shin, the result would be unimaginable. Even the Gust demon clan wouldn't stand up for him. He would simply die for nothing. Chumph, then just twice the pay. Elder Mo snorted and leapt down from the treetop, chasing in the direction of Ling Han and Hunyo. He was in a bad mood, and could use these 2 to vent his anger. Follow him, I want to see how that guy dies, Ding WN Qing said to Ding Jiao-yang. The 2 also chased behind. A spiritual pedestal tier warrior's speed was more than just fast, and Ling Han and Hunyo weren't walking too quickly, so after 1 or 2 minutes, Elder Mo already caught up. Hong, the presence of a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator spread out, appearing extremely terrifying. Youngster, leave your life here, he said threateningly. Ling Han stopped, turned around, looked at the other person, and said, if I recall correctly, you're one of the guardians of the stronghold, surnamed Mo, right? Gaga, that's right. Elder Mo laughed eerily. Since you know this old man's identity, why not surrender yourself? While they spoke, Ding Jiao-yang and Ding WN Qing also caught up. Ling Han looked at Ding Jiao-yang once and came to a realization. This was the middle-aged man who told him about the place where the cold and heat intertwined. It turned out he intentionally lured him out of the stronghold so as to let other people deal with him. He laughed loudly and said, Old man, one moment you're a guardian, and the next moment you're a bandit. Your old face really changes quick. Impudence. Elder Mo was furious, swatting from afar as origin power shot out and turned into a giant palm, pressing towards Ling Han. This was a spiritual pedestal tier elite's attack launched in anger. How could its power not be shocking? Chapter 392, 3 Feet Iron Body. Chapter 392, 3 feet iron body. Reverie _ Ling Han was unafraid. With a hong, the thunder battle armor burned brightly, forming a lightning barrier in front of his body. Peng, the large hand of origin power swatted down, smashing into the lightning barrier as if lightning that came from the ground, shaking heaven and earth and almost turning Ding Jiao Yang and Ding Wn Qing deaf. After this attack, Elder Mo's large hand made of origin power already shattered and Ling Han still stood upright. Treasure armor. Elder Mo immediately revealed a greedy look. Being able to neutralize one of his angry attacks, this treasure armor was definitely not simple. Besides, if it had such power in the hands of a spiritual ocean tier warrior, what if it were in his hands? He would probably be invincible within the spiritual pedestal tier. Gagagaga, well, thank you. Elder Mo attacked again, trying to grab Ling Han. This time, he not only shot out origin power, but also infused the attack with his martial intent, sending out radiant and boundless light as if a spirit was coming out. The spiritual pedestal tier meant building a heaven-reaching spiritual pedestal inside the spiritual ocean, connecting heaven and earth. Precisely because of the crossover in the spiritual pedestal tier could living beings transcend mortals. Such an elite's power was way too strong. Ling Han simply laughed, unleashing the demon birth sword. Wong, wong, 2 obscure vein-like lines lit up, emitting a powerful presence that could or both heaven and hell. Elder Mo's complexion immediately turned white, his breath turned rugged and his palm instantly swatted nothing. What? The old fellow stared at the sword in Ling Han's hand and cried out, "What sort of spirit tool is this? How could it have such a terrifying oppressive aura?" Ling Han smiled lightly. In reality, the thunder battle armor was also a 10th tier spirit tool, but it was damaged too heavily, losing its oppressive aura. Otherwise, when he added the 2 10th tier spirit tools together, it would be guaranteed that the old man wouldn't even be able to stand. Unfortunately, spirit tools weren't enchanted decrees. One could be used for a long time and the other was a disposable, so in terms of power, spirit tools couldn't compare against enchanted degrees of the same tier, unless the spirit tool had a tool spirit that could come to life on its own. If he truly had a 10th tier spirit tool with a controllable tool spirit, then Ling Han would be able to sweep all of heaven tier. Old man, reach out your neck, I can let you experience the power of a spirit tool. Ling Han smiled. Impudence. Elder Mo snorted. A mere spiritual ocean tier warrior dared to speak rudely in front of him? Didn't he know of respect for seniority in the world of martial arts? He unleashed a bronze ring, waving it fiercely. With a hoo, a raging flame turned into a fire wolf, pouncing at Ling Han. Ling Han struck with his sword. Although Demon Birth Sword only had 2 vein-like lines activated, the tier of it was clearly there. 7 flashes of sword chi shot out together, compounded by Demon Birth Sword. The power of the sword chi was absolutely invincible. Pu, 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 as expected, although the fire wolf was launched by a 5th tier spirit tool, once it clashed with 7 flashes of sword chi, it immediately scattered. In its anguished wailing, it immediately turned into a flame, evaporating into the air. Ding Jiao Yang and Ding Wn Qing revealed shocked expression at the same time. This youngster was too scary. A spiritual pedestal tier cultivator attacked and unleashed the might of a spirit tool, yet he still couldn't deal with Ling Han. In reality, Ling Han didn't even use his full strength, or else with his current cultivation on top of 2 10th tier spirit tools, his battle prowess would definitely surpass 20 star. So what if it was an opponent at the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier he was facing? Laws have no bounds, 4 division and 8 conjunctions. Elder Mo began to fight desperately. He couldn't tolerate being inferior to a spiritual ocean tier junior. Additionally, Ling Han was so fierce now, just how strong would he be when he broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier? Therefore, he had to be killed to end all future troubles. As he bellowed, his body size suddenly increased, growing taller by a fold. Pa, the clothes on his body completely broke into pieces. Fortunately, there was still underwear to act as a fig leaf, or else it would be too offensive a view to public decency. His presence also increased by a whole lot, rocketing from the 2nd layer of the spiritual pedestal tier to the 4th layer. Ling Han shook his head and said, "Your power manifestation is too weak. Other people measure 30 feet as bronze body, 300 feet as silver body, and 3,000 feet as gold body, yet yours is only 3 feet. Is that an iron body? Hunyo instantly giggled. If other people didn't give Ling Han face, she obviously would. Die. Elder Mo raised his foot high up and then stepped down fiercely at Ling Han. Like I said, your power manifestation is too weak. Using it is an absolute joke. Ling Han raised his sword and carried out the 4 seasons sword art as the conception of spring, summer, winter, and autumn continued endlessly. In theory, his power was far short of Elder Mo's, but with the Thunder Battle Armor's blessing on top of the sharpness of Demon Birth Sword, he could match the battle prowess of a 4-star spiritual pedestal tier warrior. Of course, other than him, how many other people in the world could take out 2 10th tier spirit tools? The two battled fiercely while Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing looked on with their jaws slack. It turned out that Ling Han's battle prowess was overbearing to such a degree. They really shouldn't have provoked such a freak. But now, they could only pray that Elder Mo would not disappoint them and absolutely suppress Ling Han. Otherwise, they were doomed. However, the situation was worsening. Although Elder Mo's battle prowess was certainly astounding, Ling Han had the Thunder Battle Armor's protection, so Elder Mo couldn't harm him at all. Contrarily, Ling Han's attacks were enough to cause considerable threat to Elder Mo. This was a completely unequal battle. Impossible. How could this be? That's the spiritual pedestal tier. Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing were numb across their faces. Unexpectedly, Ding Wenqing was first to react and said, "Take this chance, hurry back to the stronghold. As long as we hide there, even that kid wouldn't dare come kill us in there. All right, let's go. Once my older brother comes, this brat will die for sure." They hurriedly turned to leave, but as they turned around, a beautifully decked-out little girl stood quietly in front of them. She was so cute that one would have the urge to squeeze her little face. However, Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing were struck with terror. This little princess had attacked viciously and her battle prowess was shocking. She wiped out 10 spiritual ocean tier warriors almost instantly. Even they could only be ashamed of being inferior. She was absolutely a little devil. And now, the little devil blocked their path. "Little lady, be good, let us leave, all right?" Ding Wenqing tried hard to squeeze out a gentle smile. "Not all right, Nyo won't let you guys go." Hunyo stared at the two. She only planned to block this too, leaving it to Ling Han to take care of them. "Damned little girl." Ding Jiaoyang's gaze turned grim. As his hand swayed, a sharp sword was already in his hand. On the blade were red vein-like lines that emitted a gloomy and dreadful presence. "Bloodwave sword." Ding Wenqing exulted. "Brother Jiaoyang, when did the family pass on the Bloodwave sword to you? Haha, now we won't have to be afraid of this cheap little brat." Ding Jiaoyang didn't respond, waving his sword at Hunyo. Blood-red lines like spider webs spread out, covering the entire world. Chapter 393, Icefire Gourd Valley. Chapter 393, Icefire Gourd Valley. Reverie _ Hunyo was completely unafraid. Her small body scuttled through the red vein-like lines, and if she couldn't avoid it, she used her nails and mouth to tear and bite it apart. Such terrifying ability made Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing dumbstruck. Two freaks, they were definitely two freaks. On the other side, Ling Han had already completely gained the upper hand. He didn't even need to use the 3 styles of black origin. His right hand unleashed the 4 seasons sword art and his left hand clenched into a fist, blasting out War Elephant Fist continuously. Hong, 7 flashes of sword chi flew unhindered. With the sharpness of Demon Birth Sword, even a spiritual pedestal tier wouldn't dare to receive it head-on, or else it would at least leave a gash and at worst, sever his hands or feet. Ling Han was somewhat in a bad mood. He could only launch 7 flashes of sword chi, but couldn't send out 6 flashes of fist chi at the same time. The two things couldn't be used simultaneously. He was very depressed, but immediately laughed loudly. If it could be stacked infinitely, then he could strike with his sword, send out punches, and throw kicks. How much chi would he shoot out? "Old man, it's time to end this," Ling Han said. He had no time to tangle with him. Zhu Xian'er came here earlier than he did, and since that woman's charm was tremendous, Who knew how many people it could influence in helping her find crimson-red chilling ice grass? He had to hurry. Elder Mo was both shocked and angered. As a spiritual pedestal tier elite, he was actually suppressed by a youngster. He felt very unwilling to be outdone. It was mainly because of the two spirit tools that were too domineering on Ling Han, making him unsuccessful in his attacks and confounded in his defenses. If this went on, he would truly lose. Youngster, we have no grudge and this old man was deceived, so why not just stop the battle now? He thought of retreating, finding no reason to fight Ling Han to the death. He only received some benefits from Ding Jiaoyang. It wouldn't be worth it at all if he fought so desperately. Ling Han sneered and said, "That's really funny. You chased to kill me, and if you could kill me, you definitely wouldn't show mercy. When you can't beat me, you actually want to leave just by saying we have no grudges. Old dog, your head got asterisk messed up. Brat, how dare you?" Elder Mo was trembling with anger. This kid's mouth was too malicious. His gaze turned grim as he said, "You really want to force this old man to fight to the death? Whether you fight to the death or not, the result will be the same," Ling Han said indifferently, taking a deep breath as Mysterious 3000 was ready to be launched. Elder Mo threw 3 consecutive palms, and actually turned tail and ran. "Still want to run now? Too late." Ling Han unleashed his sword as the Mysterious 3000 was launched. Shio, 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 800 sword lights moved simultaneously, covering the sky and the earth. This was sword light set off by the demon birth sword. What kind of power would it have? Elder Mo turned around, raising his palm to parry, but the sword light came pouring vast and mighty, swallowing him like a tsunami. When all the sword light disappeared, Elder Mo disappeared from the spot and only fragments of blood, flesh, and bones fluttered in the air. Ling Han leapt over, picking up a ring that once belonged to Elder Mo from the ground. He then looked at Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing, who were obstructed by who Nuthi wanted to escape but just couldn't manage to. "No, let me." Ling Han charged over sword in hand. Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing were panic-stricken. Ling Han even killed Elder Mo, and in comparison, what were they? "Friend, keep calm, we're Ding family's people." The Ding family, Four-Way City's Ding family. The Lord Master is a flower blossom tier elite. My brother is Ding Shin, a figure on the last term's prodigy roll. Now he's at the cultivation of the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and is in this forest, Ding Jiaoyang said, pretending to be calm. Hu Niu was unable to be reasoned with. Ling Han wouldn't also be unreasonable, right? Ling Han scoffed and said with a smile, "Don't they say that backgrounds are useless in the Dark Demon Forest?" No kidding. Inside the Dark Demon Forest, one's background was certainly useless. They could only look at who was the stronger one. The problem was that they were no match for him now, so Ding Jiaoyang could only bring out his background to scare people. Ding Jiaoyang saw that Ling Han didn't immediately attack, and thinking that it worked, he hurriedly said, "Friend, it's all only a misunderstanding." "Hehe, me killing you guys is also just a misunderstanding." Ling Han laughed, and waved his sword, striking outwards. Pu, 2 flashes of sword chi flew by and Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing were easily killed. In front of Ling Han, who brandished a 10th tier spirit tool, it would be strange if they weren't killed in one move. Ling Han picked up 2 more spatial rings. The profits were pretty good. "Let's go," Ling Han said with a smile. Hu Niu immediately agreed in a crisp voice and began signing cheerfully. This primitive forest was the place where she felt most at ease. While walking, Ling Han rummaged through the things inside the 3 spatial rings. Ding Jiaoyang and Ding Wenqing's spatial rings were almost all empty. This was normal as they had just arrived at the Dark Demon Forest for medicinal harvesting and naturally wouldn't have any gains yet. However, Elder Mo's spatial ring had plenty of origin crystals. Majority was 1-star ones, and only a dozen were 2-star. It wasn't abundant, either. Other than origin crystals, there was also a book of martial arts technique as well as a map. Ling Han stored everything in the Black Tower, then took out and flipped through the book. Surprisingly, it was a claw technique at Earth grade, but Elder Mo didn't display it earlier, most likely having obtained it just recently. Earth-grade martial arts techniques could only be cultivated at the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han threw this book into the Black Tower, then looked at the map again. With a single glance, he revealed a smile. This was a very detailed map of the Dark Demon Forest. Every single place other than the core region was labeled. For example, every single stronghold and what force it belonged to, and what areas had precious spirit medicines. Other than that, the areas Flower Blossom tier beasts were active in were also marked by a red circle to emphasize danger. Not bad, not bad, this map was quite valuable. Ling Han searched briefly. The place Ding Jiuyang had mentioned was labeled Icefire Gourd Valley. On the map, half the area had been covered by chilling ice for years, while the other half had lava spurting out with scarlet flames surging into the sky. It certainly was a place where the cold and heat intertwined. This place could give birth to crimson-red chilling ice grass. Ling Han hurried over. The distance wasn't too big. Inside the valley was a peak stage spiritual pedestal tier beast. It was an extremely terrifying large snake, and it was very sly. When it encountered Flower Blossom tier cultivators, it would worm into the ice caves to hide, and when it encountered other martial artists, it would attack unrelentingly. Thus, very few people entered this valley. However, with the valley's harsh conditions, it was almost impossible to birth any other spirit medicines, so no Flower Blossom tier elite intentionally went to kill this large snake while the medicine harvesters stayed far away. One day later, he arrived at the Gourd Valley. He hadn't entered the valley yet but was suddenly alerted, turning around in a rush to see that a person had appeared unknowingly 30 feet away. Ao Feng. This guy definitely came chasing after him, but it was the disguised identity he pursued. Han Lin. Ao Feng had a killing intent written all across the face, but seeing Ling Han turn his head, he was momentarily startled. It actually wasn't the one he was searching for, so how come they looked so similar from behind? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,